Well, thanks for being here today. I appreciate it. It's been a while, too long. Actually, of my multiple viewers, you're their first favorite guest host. My second favorite.
Really?
I've got to say Sarah's my favorite.
Sure, that's
Uh,
understandable.
she and I have recorded more than I posted. Uh, but the feedback I get, folks like the episodes that we've done together.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
great. Well, to the tens of you out there, thank you. I appreciate that.
I wouldn't overstate it. To the ones,
To the ones. Okay, all right,
to
all
the several ones.
right. I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, so like we did Renee Good, like the review of the shooting, in a couple different segments, and I mean, I think you and I got together for 4 or 5 hours, and I edited it down to like three, and then further edited it to one for like a short synopsis.
Yeah.
And today we're here for something similar. A couple days ago was the Madison officer involved shooting of Corey Ruiz, and so that, in my view, you can tell me if you disagree. I think it's less video intensive. Like
Absolutely.
there is a very good video. There's a couple of videos. There's one very good video.
Yes.
But before we get into it, like for the folks that haven't watched uh, the Renee Good stuff we did, or otherwise, I mean, I was in a couple of your pods too,
Yep.
the training stuff. Can you tell people a little bit about like what you do and how you're qualified to speak on this?
Yeah, sure thing. So I've been active in law enforcement for over 20 years. I am a firearms instructor, use of force instructor. I've taught and trained law enforcement officers in those fields and related fields for well over 15 years. I've run a couple training companies that have taught firearms, self-defense, tactics, things like that to private citizens as well as law enforcement officers. And I've worked on criminal cases for defense attorneys as an expert witness, been accepted into court as an expert witness, testifying about ballistics and firearms, done some reconstruction on some criminal cases and some video analysis and video synchronization and things like that. So I would say I've spent a good deal of time, watching videos and reviewing cases just like this, and for both the courts, but also as well as on the training side, training officers how to be better, analyzing mistakes and how to teach officers to be more effective and how to be safer and things like that.
It's crazy to me the stuff that you and I disagree on factually,
Yeah.
and yet I still just so thoroughly enjoy the conversations, and like we agree on so much as well. Like I'm so jazzed for you're having been daubered and found to be an expert, and I know that like life just doesn't permit that right now because you've got kids,
Yeah.
you've got a wife who works full time, like maybe even fuller time than you do,
Yeah.
right?
Fuller time for sure.
We actually met through the previous incarnation. So your side hustle is Critical Impact Group. That's where you
Yes.
teach the dudes like me and also the cops,
Yep.
and in separate classes. Often, not always, but like for
Yeah,
instance, you're not doing a whole lot of sniper training for dudes like me.
No.
The stuff for me is more like self defense or sport proficiency, and you and I have done both, right?
Yeah.
We've done it with the Glock. We've done it with the AR because, I'm like the Glock for both sport and self-defense, the AR because, I've done like three gunning and I suck and I didn't want to be laughed at anymore.
Uh-huh.
Um, but for the pro, like you do like legit sniper stuff for like the dudes up on the lights at Lambeau and that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Some pretty specialized, or I don't like the word, dare I say, advanced training. Yeah. Sniper trainings, active shooter training, solo officer response to active shooter. I've done some vehicle tactics classes and things like that. So,
which, I mean, like political disagreements aside, I mean, I really don't like the militarization of police. And I mean, I would guess in some shape and form, you'd agree. We'd probably use different words on it, but
sure.
the vehicle interdiction just looks fucking fun. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Well, it is fun, and not just that, but it's important. And I feel it's one of those areas, in tactics where law enforcement is behind the curve where we should be, and we get into a lot of use of force, shooting into cars and things like that when maybe we shouldn't have to. And it's one of those cases where sometimes more aggressive or more assertive tactics on the front end can actually prevent an officer involved shooting on the back end.
Interesting.
You see a lot of officers these days. It drives me nuts, and I see them almost every day. Videos, and you see officers trying to like take a guy out of a car. The car is still free to move, and they're ramming around and smashing into things. And you have an officer like trying to like yank open the door, like holding onto a door handle as the car is driving off, and it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you're not going to stop that 3,000-pound car. So things like teaching officers that we need to pin vehicles before we actually, like, we need to arrest the vehicle before we arrest the subject inside. Just trying to improve our tactics, to make it safer for officers as well as offenders and the public.
I was at a offenders. You mean citizens accused? The Supreme Court case we talked about last time that had sort of altered what we thought the analysis was about the moment of the shooting, and said no, really, it's broader, it's the totality of the circumstances. I mean, that was like a cop or a security guard or something, like hanging on to a vehicle that was like, it was like a Lethal Weapon moment, right? Like
Yeah.
Mel Gibson.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that was I think the officer like jumped onto a running board of a car or something like that, and it's just mind boggling, honestly, how we could think that's a good idea. But for better or worse, law enforcement in this country is very localized. We don't have we do have federal law enforcement like other countries where, in England, like everybody's, one police agency. Okay. For the most part, every agency here is a separate entity, which can make it very responsive to individual communities. Different communities, get policed differently based on their needs and preferences, and how much taxes they're willing to pay and things like that. The downside of that, though, is that the training then is often very different. Some agencies can get really good training, even here in the state of Wisconsin, where we all have the same basic training to start at a law enforcement academy. Once you get to your own agency, there are agencies that, I'll just say, for example, firearms, right? One agency might train their officers once or maybe twice a year, and half of that is shooting a qualification, which, as you know, isn't training. It's just an administrative check the box type thing.
And indicative of like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it's essentially a waste of time. I'm just going to go out there.
I mean,
and
like,
say
as a static target, ain't that far.
Yeah, it's not challenging. The time standards aren't challenging. It is, for all intents and purposes, a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
But it's something that the statute says we have to do. Other agencies might train firearms every month. You get a good SWAT team, like say Milwaukee or something like that. Those guys on the SWAT team, they're on the range all the time, so they're going to be much more proficient and better at things. So again, pros and cons of having localized independent law enforcement agencies.
That's interesting. I mean, as an American, Wisconsinite, I take federalism for granted. I do very little federal practice. When I do, it's mostly habeas, which is a civil remedy springing from a criminal conviction.
Sure.
So my civil practice is essentially nil. But it's interesting to even think of other places where it would be consistent. I mean, just in terms of training, not that anybody in law enforcement especially cares about my opinion, but I mean, I think there's a very compelling case to be made for maybe even more than firearms training, for BJJ, for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just in terms of like result. I mean, not that it's an either or, right? Like, there's a continuum. People should know all the things.
Yes.
But in terms of like, I hadn't thought about it, but it might apply to this situation. I mean, and we'll talk about it. What I do, after we get through this intro, I'd like to watch the video just to orient you and I, so we can comment on it. And then in post, I'll like put the video on the screen. Like right now, it'll just be up there.
Yep.
but I mean, the notion of 3 or 4 cops on one dude, and I get, like, he was a strong younger dude,
Yep.
seems like, and one of the cops is a lady, one of the cops seemed to be, like, a little bit smaller, maybe overweight,
Yep.
you know? But it's like there's 4 people,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
that old how many 12-year-olds could you take?
Yeah. It's funny because it's like numbers can be it can be a pro and it can be a con. At some point, when you're trying to control somebody, you have 4 officers and they're all trying to pull somebody in a different direction, and you wind up
Dude,
fighting each other and you don't even realize it.
which, like, look, in addition to BJJ, like, as long as we're spitballing and I'm pretending that I know about things,
Sure.
like, in terms of shit that would matter in terms of less people ending up dead, like, I don't wanna say role playing, training, anticipating, like, cops training for those situations where it's like, you've got someone you don't know who's in charge and everybody wants them to do there's several well-publicized examples of the cops yelling at people to do
Oh,
opposite
yeah.
things. "Put your hands up, lay down." It's like, "What
Don't
the fuck
move.
do you
Yeah,
want?"
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like, "You
Get up,
want"
get down, right? Yeah,
exactly.
I
It's
know.
like,
Yep.
"You want me to do burpees?" I mean, what's the
Yeah.
it's and it's like, there's gotta be an answer for that. Like, I'm sure that
Yeah.
and again, I hate the militarization of police, but, like, I'm pretty sure the door kickers, in Afghanistan, Iraq, God forbid Iran, like, they've got methods.
Yeah.
Like, I know they like, reading Jocko Willink stuff,
Sure.
like, even regardless of rank, it's like, step forward, and if someone with more rank steps forward, like, you step back, right? But there's
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
a there's a take authority if no one's taking authority so that people know who's lead,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, Jocko talks about, like, leadership vacuums and,
Yes,
like, there's
yes.
a vacuum
So
of
you've read it.
leadership, so somebody has to step up and do it.
Yeah,
And that's very difficult, I think, for younger, less experienced officers to do that. I think naturally it does wind up happening a lot where somebody will step in, but it's also a training thing, and officers need to recognize, like, we try to train people that there should be one person giving commands, you know, and then that person's running the show then. And you need to communicate with each other too, but you can't be telling the guy to do different things.
my
Okay.
stepdaughter, is going to college in, like, 12 seconds.
Hmm.
She has been a lifeguard forever and recently was recertifying or training others on, the first aid at the Y,
Hmm.
and her gig is as opposed to being the direct provider of it, instructing folks, like giving specific orders, like you go call 911, start the compressions, grab the towel for that or what, like,
Sure.
I should probably take the first aid or CPR, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that sort of thing. I
Yep.
mean, so it's not like I mention it A because I'm proud of her, and B because it ain't just Jocko. Like,
Yeah.
this is stuff that they're teaching my high school daughter,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Like, cops, like, and I mean, so, like, you've been a cop, you've trained cops, not in particular, like, in regard to that, but is that something that is currently being trained, or is there, like, some
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, it is. I would say the thing to remember is that there's the training environment, which is sterile, and then there's the real world, which is chaos, right? And there's no second chances in the real world, and there's no timeouts, and there's no pauses. So things happen, and you got to roll with it. To go back to specifically BJJ, I absolutely think there's value in that. One of the things that I just recently started doing, coming back into law enforcement, because that was starting to gain traction when I kind of left full time law enforcement a number of years ago.
Mhm.
And as I started looking at coming back to working full time again, I was like, I think I need to do that. So I joined a gym, started rolling. I've done a few classes, so I'm basically an expert, right? um,
Absolutely.
oh man, it's wild actually starting something that you know very little about and being the total noob. But I absolutely think there's a really big benefit to that, and law enforcement defense and arrest tactics or defensive tactics are starting to shift more in that direction. And I
Yeah.
know currently changes are being made at the state level to bring more of that into the academy. So we're talking more about control versus, it's not like eliminating strikes, it's not eliminating pressure points and different things like that, but it's it's just, I think teaching more principles and teaching people how to control people. One, it's often more effective, and two, it's less likely to cause injury and things like that. But again, it's a crazy dynamic situation anytime you're in a fight. So as awesome as BJJ is, it's still not a real fight. MMA is not a real fight. There are rules,
Well,
right? There are refs, there are things like that.
with a BJJ, you do gi or shirt or no gi, which
Yes,
is like a
correct.
t-shirt, and that varies whether or not you got a lapel to grab, which
Yes.
makes a ton of difference because if you're wearing a gi, those are like super reinforced. So one of the most inspirational things I saw was this cop about your wife's size. And your wife's an officer too. I don't know
Hmm.
if she's more admin now or if she still does patrol,
Yep.
but she is svelte. I mean, she's
She's in good shape.
skinny.
Yep.
I could fit like four of her, right? Um, so like there was this after incident video with a woman about her size who's very bruised up, you could tell.
Hmm.
And she got in an altercation in which she absolutely would have been justified to kill the dude,
Sure.
and she could have. And her answer was simple. She's just like, I never felt afraid for my life.
That's
Like I'd
awesome.
done this before. I've been
Good for
hit.
her. Yeah.
Like yes, he hit me several times. It did hurt.
Yep.
I wasn't afraid for my life.
Yep.
Like, and this is taking into account like I know that there's cops who are very hair trigger on he could have got my gun. Like if he knocks me out, he gets my gun.
Yep.
And I've known civilians get off on that as well. Like I carry concealed and I was afraid like if this dude took me, he'd take my gun and hurt me or others. So
Yep.
like that's a valid defense for anyone. But I mean, I think that the confidence that, you know, fighting friendly people can give someone just carries over into I mean, sure, the rest of life in terms of fitness, but like in work too. You know,
Absolutely.
you get hit, you get pins. You know when you're in trouble versus when you're not, right?
Yes. And I will say, I'm gonna branch off on that a little bit. I would say today in law enforcement, so many people want to focus on like, let's do de-escalation training and let's do crisis intervention training and this and that. And believe me, all of that's important. I'm not going to downplay the importance of that. But if you want to make an officer effective and honestly less likely to have to use deadly force, the most important thing that you can invest in them is their hard skills. Teach them how to be really good shooters and really good fighters, because then exactly like you said, they will know when they're in trouble. They will know their limits. They won't panic as you see less experienced or less skilled officers do, because they don't, you know, when you're less experienced and less lower trained, you haven't been subjected to those higher levels of stress and those higher levels of danger in training or in your job. So all of a sudden, to you, like when your normal baseline is down here and all of a sudden you're exposed to something here, it's like, oh shit.
Mhm.
And the reaction is, I've never been in something this dangerous before, or something that's difficult before. But when your training is intense and your training is at that level, it's like, okay, I've done this
Yeah.
before. Maybe not the exact same environment, but I've been exposed to this before. Um, it's just, where your line in the sand is, so to speak. It's just a lot clearer. And I have found through my observations and my own personal experience, officers they have better hard skills, they're better fighters, and they're better shooters are less likely to have to use high levels of force, including deadly force, than officers who don't receive as much of that training.
Do you almost think it's like I mean I think this is what you mean, and maybe just saying it differently. It's like a level of confidence such that makes it like there's not an uncertainty that is going to provoke conflict. You know what I mean? I think if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, like the cops who've been trained in it have that sort of confidence such that their timidity or their uncertainty isn't going to invite a challenge and escalate things. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's multiple levels. One, I think there's the aura, the presence that you present. Like you see, like you see some people walking down the street or on an airplane or something like that. If you fly, when I get on an airplane, I look around and you can just look at people, and it's like, okay, if something goes down here, like that guy, like those guys look like they're people I can count on. You can just tell from their presence, the way that they're, might be the way they're dressed, the way that they're sitting, the way that they're looking, the way they're observing. They make eye contact with you when you get on the plane, things like that. So I think one, there's a presence. The other thing too is I do think it's a skill set. Obviously, the more skilled you are, I think that some people think that, oh, if we train officers a bunch in shooting, well, then they're just going to shoot everybody, and that's just not the case.
Right.
Um, but then I also think that there's the confidence and there's the mindset. And confidence isn't knowing that you're going to win. It's knowing that things are going to be okay, right? So, I get into a fight with somebody and, yeah, maybe I'm getting hurt, I'm getting beat up or a little bit, but I'm like, okay, like I'm going to be okay here. I'm still in control. I know what's happening. I know what I need to do. It's being able to stay calm in those moments. Once you lose your cool and you start panicking, that's when shit goes off the rails really quick.
Yeah, as anybody who's been in deep water knows. I mean, it's fine if you're if you know what you're doing, but
Yeah.
like even if you get a mouthful or a breathful of water, like you can still keep it together, right?
Yes.
But it's like once you start panicking in deep water, that's
Yep.
so it occurs to me that one of the other things that training does is let you know what's unrealistic. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, but if you haven't, you will within the next couple of days. There's a video going around of a cop at an encounter who, like, I assume a dad or stepdad was beating someone, like maybe the kid with a baseball bat,
Okay.
and the kid was like on the ground. They
Yeah, I've seen
blurred
that
it
one.
out,
Yep.
and the cop took 17 shots and missed every fucking one.
Yeah, I saw that. So I went through, I
You
didn't
did see
watch,
this one.
yeah, I didn't watch that video super closely, but I was like, how much, like, because
I mean, how
eventually
do you?
he did
It
hit him
wasn't. He did eventually,
10
yes.
shots before he hit him. And you can tell
Okay.
in the 10th shot, the guy winces, but then he
Okay.
goes right back to doing what he's doing. So it's not an effective hit, but it did
Yeah.
actually hit him.
Interesting distinction.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Um, yeah, there were issues I had with
So, I
it.
mean, other than like from what I saw in that video, distance wasn't a problem,
Hmm.
but just from fucking around with like guys at the range, I know I'm going to have a problem hitting something at 25 yards with my Glock. I know
Sure.
I shouldn't because of your training. Like we've drilled on this. I've done it in training,
Yeah.
but like I haven't done it since training.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yep.
So like let alone at 50, like that for me is going to be an impossible shot with a pistol, and I would say
Sure.
it's going to be difficult for anybody who like even good people,
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Um so like I want to talk to you a little bit later because there's suggestions from smart people who just haven't done this sort of thing, and like I would wonder what the real answer is. Like, why not shoot the dude in the leg? You know what I
Sure. Yeah,
mean?
we can discuss that. Yeah.
And you might have just answered it in part. I mean, about that the video you saw, like it was a shot, but it wasn't an effective shot because he just
Correct.
went back to what he was doing,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Um, so I mean, I think that aptly sums up the introductions. At least for myself. Are you still publishing anything on the critical impact group
I
on the
haven't
website?
done
No.
a lot of writing or videos and stuff lately.
Okay.
Again, I've been pretty busy working a full-time job now. It's amazing, man. It really kills your lifestyle. It really takes up your free time.
Oh,
It's a buzzkill.
no.
It's a buzzkill.
It's
So
awful.
the pro of it is that I've been able to focus on the stuff that I really enjoy doing and the
Mhm.
stuff that's more profitable. So it's like I focus on that, and then some of the things that, even though I may like doing them, they take more time. They don't bring as much in. For now, I've kind of you got to pick and choose. You got to say no to some things every now and then in life. You can't do
Absolutely.
everything.
Well, I'm glad you didn't say no to today. Um, so, in regard to the Corey Ruiz shooting, this is from Channel 3000, which is a local, right?
Yep.
In this, it just says disturbing video. Witness video shows something, and it's very short. So we'll watch it once at least, and if you want to, we'll do it again. Let me draw your attention to this, though. Like, given the big screen, we could pause and walk up to it.
Yep.
I'll tell you that my theory at this point, notwithstanding official statements, is that both the female officer and the dude just to the right of her tased him. The female officer's taser did not work.
Okay.
The male officer's taser did.
Sure.
And you and I believe, will ultimately agree that in the split second that the male officer's taser worked, if in fact I'm right,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But that's just too fast for the human brain to process in
Yeah.
terms of the officer who got cut
Yep.
and shooting Corey. So I'll go ahead and play, though. I just wanted to mention that on the front end
I appreciate
because
that. Yeah.
I've been, since the day you and I texted about it, like 2 days ago, my thought was that there was a couple of tases just from the sounds and what it
I had
appeared.
heard the sound too. Yeah, watching the video that I saw, I wasn't quite able to figure that
If
out, but I think that's a good
if you want to
analysis.
walk up, you can certainly. So it looks like the female officer did what many train on and have has her taser on the left, just
Yep.
so like there's that big distinction.
Yeah, there's enough
Wasn't there a
confusion.
mistake here a couple of years
There's
ago?
been several. It hasn't been locally here, but there have been several times where officers thought they were drawing their tasers. They drew their guns and they shot
Shot
somebody,
someone
and
that
officers have
wasn't
gone to
here.
prison for that. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so the male officer, on the other hand, maybe he's left-handed because I didn't see his pistol on his
Yeah.
right hand side.
Sure.
The dude who tased, he
Okay.
looks like he's fumbling around with the right. But regardless, you can absolutely see the strings coming from him at the
Yes.
end.
Yeah.
Maybe he got tangled up in hers. So, like,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's gospel, but
Sure. Yeah. You want to play one more time? Yeah.
yeah, one more.
Yep. Yeah.
So why don't you go, man? What are like tell us what we saw. Let us know your thoughts.
Man. Well, I think it's important to just make sure that we start back at the beginning, and that is that this individual was called in to 911. A citizen saw him going and checking car doors, which, um, we were talking beforehand. Like, I don't think he's probably, checking to make sure people's doors are locked. Like, he's looking to steal stuff, whether it's to steal the car or to steal stuff inside of it. That's what he's
And
doing.
if you want to, like,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter to me the order in which we take it. So we watched the video, and you're like literally a forensic expert
sure.
in shootings and officer involved shootings. But precious little has been said about Corey's record in mainstream media, and
Yeah,
in part for good reason, in part not. I mean, I would say there was a stretch during the '90s whenever something happened to a black person, they showed their mugshot, if
sure.
there was one, or they showed them, spreading bills and gold
Yeah,
fronts, like
yep,
non-gratifying photos.
sure.
And now we've sort of swung in the other direction where there's a sanitization
Yeah,
of someone's record where whether practically or legally it might be relevant. We can discuss this further, but just for the audience, legally speaking, someone's record is only relevant if the officers know about it.
correct.
Practically speaking, and just as a human, I'm more inclined to believe that if you fought cops 6 times already, you're more likely to than say my girlfriend, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yep,
and there are legitimately different rules from state to state There's a federal court rule. There's propensity evidence versus what you get in if you're claiming self-defense, which entails what you knew at the time. There's character evidence, which can't include specific instances. You and I, though, know this, at least some of this dude's record, and it is long. Like,
Yeah.
he has fought cops ad nauseum. He has lifted cars. He has committed battery more. So,
Yeah.
whichever one you want to start with, the video analysis or the dude's history, like
Well,
both, we need to discuss both.
I think let's circle back to the guy's history in a little bit.
Sure.
I think it'll naturally kind of work its way in there. I will say this. I'll just preview this. That when I saw his record, my first thought was like, well, seeing this record, I could have told you this is a person who will be killed by law enforcement at some point in his life. Like when you have
Absent some sort of like meaningful intervention.
exactly. Like when you have so many times that you've fought and been arrested by police for fighting the police, for battering the police, for resisting causing injury, for threatening police officers and judges. Like at like this is clearly a person who has just utter contempt for rule of law and the court system and the whole justice system in general. Like you keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. Like eventually, either by circumstance or by him escalating, this is what's going to happen.
So
So
I'll take a quick pit stop there
yeah,
to note as well that mental health issues absolutely permeate his history.
of course.
The number of times that his lawyers, who like, look, just going over CCAP, the number of Facebook friends I have who have represented him
Oh, really?
was astounding.
Wow. Yeah.
People who are judges now
Yep.
represented him. People who prosecuted him are facing. I mean, like the number of lawyers with involvement with this dude was just like, if I was going to send condolence cards, like I would need two boxes.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
just, and we can get into more detail, but in various cases they considered NDI not guilty by reason of insanity, which means he wasn't mentally culpable for his behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not aware that that ever worked in any of his cases,
Sure.
but it was enough that they had assessments done.
Sure.
Competency was raised, which means that his lawyers had reason to doubt that he even understood the charges against him or the function of the court and who the players were. It's a very minimal standard.
Yeah.
And again, those records are sealed. I don't have access to like the results, but we know that the cases continue to conviction. So the only conclusion you can make is that the court found him ultimately competent, which is a super, super low bar.
Yeah.
But it's to say these mental health issues, he fired numerous lawyers who I know to be good, which I've
Yeah.
just like, look, I've had clients like this kid,
Yeah.
this guy.
Sure.
I don't know if he was a kid. He was born in the 80s, right?
Yeah. I think so.
I don't know
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
the kid to me.
Yeah. Late 80s, I
Uh,
want to say. Yeah.
but, you know, like mental health issues, that's not an excuse, it's an observation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's just
Absolutely.
something to be aware of. It's something in the mix.
And I think that's something good because I think talking about his criminal history and how many times he was in court and the mental health aspect, I think after we talk about the shooting, that'll be a good thing to go to because I think that kind of talks about how can we fix some of these things and maybe prevent some of these things from happening in the future. Because I'm going to say that I feel, in my opinion, that his death was preventable, but it wasn't due to anything law enforcement did.
Mhm.
I think law enforcement gave it the college try to get this guy into the system 25 times since 2007.
And just for a preview at this point, recognizing the reviews evolve, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, uh, at least as the time I was reading your Facebook post, like you were questioning, you know, whether prosecutors or judges, if they had done something differently. Is that still about where you're at?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not trying to like point fingers because there's so many things. And ultimately, I still feel that this individual is responsible for their actions.
Mhm.
Okay. That said, it's like we have intervention options. And I will say this say, like, I have a law enforcement agency or law enforcement officers, let's say, like a hostage situation, and they have clear attempts, clear opportunities to intervene to save somebody's life, and they don't do it because of fear, cowardice, concern over liability, things like that, right? They don't take clear opportunities when they should be acting, in my opinion. I will absolutely critique them and criticize them for that. And I've done
Yeah,
that. I've taken that over past cases. So what I really am more, and I'm not, again, I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody who's dealt with him in the past, but I think we need to also consider that we are so focused on analyzing 15 seconds of a police officer's actions. We have years of actions in the court system. Why are we not to point fingers, not to blame, but maybe to improve our process? Why are we not going back through and analyzing that too?
for sure. Yeah, so the trap I don't want to fall in is two dudes talking about how it's other people's problem, how they should do things.
100%.
Uh, and I don't think that's where we're headed. I mean, we're both involved with the justice system to the extent that people will at least listen to us over lunch. So like
Sure.
this isn't a finger pointing exercise,
Not at
even if
all.
we're saying it would help if judges' perspectives were different. If you don't mind, tell us what we saw with the video.
Yeah. So, again, leading up to it, officers were called because he was basically breaking into cars. They went to contact him. He took off running or fleeing on a bicycle, I believe. And at some point, they caught up with him. He either got off the bike, they knocked him down, and then we see the four officers trying to take him into custody. Right. So they have, lawful authority to contact him. I don't know if they knew this at the time, but I have heard that he had a probation warrant. So it's not just potentially, if they knew this, it's not just the guy's checking cars. It's a warrant is something you're commanded from a judge to take this person into custody and bring them
Sure.
back to the court. So it's a higher level. We typically don't ignore warrants. There are times when we won't take someone in, but it's very rare. Very rare.
My impression with the warrants with my clients for non-appearance where they're just honestly too spacey to show up
Hmm.
is that a warrant's issued, and if there's contact you'll bring them in, but it's you're not necessarily
No,
going out looking for them.
exactly. What I heard was this was a probation warrant, and when probation gets a warrant, I don't know if he was on GPS or anything like that, but if they know where he's staying, or if they know he's got a GPS thing, they will actively call law enforcement and ask us to go pick him up. So
Okay.
it's a little bit more than a non-appearance.
Sure.
It's like a, hey, this guy's messed up, and we want you to go get him. Please do so.
Okay.
Um, so, anyways, long story short, so they're starting to obviously physically try to take him into custody. And at this point, it's a bit of a mess, right? You have four officers on the guy trying to subdue him. You have to get him down onto the ground. You have to stabilize him in order to get him into custody, to put handcuffs on him. There's a few things I see, like if I really want to nitpick defensive tactics, we can certainly do so.
Let me just ask, is there
Yeah.
any, and we'll ask briefly and come back to it, is the number of cops responding typical for a dude has been looking in cars, or after that,
Yeah.
like he's fleeing and we're chasing him, then more come, or
So
what?
yeah, I would say yes, fleeing and then chasing. For a guy looking into cars, standard for Madison is going to be to send two officers. Now, if there's other officers in the area and they're going to jump in to help, yeah, absolutely, right? Because it's Williamson Street, it's crowded, there's people around. Like it can be hard to, easy to lose somebody, I should say there. So if there's officers around, they're going to do it. But you're not. It's not like a shooting call where you're going to get 10 officers at a responding at once. You're probably going to get two initially dispatched, maybe a third might jump on. Once somebody starts running and fleeing, like anybody in the area who's free is going to come to try to help.
Okay.
And that could be setting up a perimeter, that could be trying to locate the guy, things like that. My understanding is that this guy fled, broke contact, and then they found him again. So this was a more extended period of time where they were trying to chase him around. So you're probably getting more officers into the area.
Sure.
Anyways, they're trying to get him into custody. Obviously, they're having difficulty controlling him. I think your analysis of two people firing the tasers is correct based on the audio that we hear. The two initial pops are not gunshots; those are tasers, I believe, being deployed. Um, the first one does not look effective whatsoever. The second one, I would say, it's hard to tell. It looks more effective, but simply from the range that it was fired, I can almost guarantee it was not what we would say totally effective. And what I mean by that is The taser works through neuromuscular incapacitation as well as pain compliance. And for what we call neuromuscular incapacitation to occur, basically the taser fires two probes. One fires straight, the other one fires at a downward angle.
Okay.
And electricity, obviously, it needs a connection, right? It needs a circuit. So the closer you are to a subject, the less distance there is between those two probes. So if I shoot you with a taser close range
Mm-hmm.
and your probes are here,
Yeah.
like your upper chest is, and maybe your abdomen is going to tense up and is going to crunch up, if we get a good connection, but your left arm's going to be completely free. Your legs
Oh,
are going to be completely
okay.
free.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like the closer the barbs that are in you, that area, that local area is going to be more incapacitated, leaving the rest of the body not so much. Whereas if the
Exactly.
barbs are far, like if I get one in my shoulder and the other in my hip,
Yes.
like that's likely to kind of fuck me up like it's the
Yeah.
hangover or something.
The best
Isn't that
results.
where didn't they shock Zach Galifianakis or was
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
hangover or
yeah.
something else?
I forgot what movie it was. I don't remember if it was a hangover, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. The best results I've seen from the taser are when somebody gets hit in like the upper shoulder and then like the opposite like glute or thigh, because now you have all of those muscles in between contracting, and if it's a good solid hit, you cannot break out of that
That's
as long as
interesting.
the
And
current
that's because like
is
the
there.
current is going from this area to that area then.
Yeah,
I actually
electricity
I didn't know
follows
any of
it
this.
follows the path of least resistance, right? And
Yeah.
that's where like that's where I can say, just from my knowledge of the taser, I can guarantee that taser was not fully effective because electricity, it follows the rules of physics. It's not
Well,
going to go all the way around the guy's body.
and if the ladies wasn't effective at all or minimally effective, I mean, they were all close. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like the dude,
Yeah.
uh, and the reason I was convinced that he shot the taser is just I don't know if I said this online, but like I could see the strings going to him, and
Yep.
that means he shot it or he got tangled up in hers. Like I know
Yeah.
not which.
Yeah. And we heard two pops, so I think
Yeah.
that's like
And so
not.
one taser doesn't pop two times. I didn't know about that, but
It
I,
depends
I
on the
did hear two
taser.
pops.
Depends on the taser. So the new taser 10. So interestingly, the new taser 10s work differently. They fire darts straight, probes straight. There's no angle at them, but
Intermittently.
you have to fire twice in
Oh,
order to. So the idea, and it taser 10 because you get 10 shots. So I could go ding, 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 ding. Yeah, man.
draw, back off.
I know, right? Yeah, no thanks.
Starts to be assault at some point.
The taser is going to pick basically the two probes that are the farthest. My understanding. I'm not an expert on tasers. I haven't been through the class.
Oh, and then it picks. Okay.
It's gonna yeah, it's gonna pick based on, I believe, the resistance, but it's gonna pick ones that will get a connection. So if the farthest two aren't getting a connection, it's not gonna register that. It's gonna,
Have you ever been tased?
once, and I never want to do it again.
It was that bad.
Yeah, it's for me, it was like, it's several seconds. For me, it felt like somebody was shoving hot pins all over my body, and like it was just like this, and you're just tense and there's nothing you can do about it. It is very painful, but as soon as it ends, it's like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Then it's done.
I would rather
It's
be
interesting.
tased than pepper sprayed any day of the week.
So my sister worked at Wisconsin Resource Center, which is a essentially like a small prison, like medium
Okay.
ish or
Yeah.
maybe max for mentally ill
Oh,
folks.
sure.
And as part of like, she got to the lieutenant-ish position or whatever, like she was running shifts and stuff.
Hmm.
But as part of their training, they'd get maced and tased, because if they were like in the population being held hostage, like it's not like they're going to let you put on the mask because they all,
Yeah.
So we got to the point where the tasers had discharged and they
Yeah.
weren't real effective. So what then?
Taser's discharge not real effective. And if you look at the different videos, what happens at that point? So he goes down. He's on the ground for I mean a split second, maybe it's hard. I guess we could put a timer on it,
No,
but
I would say it was the definition of a split second. Like
okay,
I am
yeah,
confident that if we put a timer on it,
yep,
it is going to be less than a second.
yeah.
Like
Um,
it was fast.
at some point there, again, in very little time, you hear an officer yell, "He's got a knife," very clear on multiple videos. And if you slow a video down, you can see him producing a knife. You can see the silver blade.
And to clarify, I don't believe he's on the ground yet when the officers are shouting. So
Yeah.
there's two things shouted. There was taser, 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 which
Yep.
officers are trained to shout, at least some of them, when they're deploying their taser.
Yep.
And the female officer yelled it, not the male officer. We hear the pops, and then we hear what I believe the shooter
Yeah.
was yelling, "He's got a knife! He's got a knife!"
Yep.
Right. So, um, I believe. I mean, that may have been as he was going down. My impression certainly was not that it was he was already down,
Yeah. And that
and
could
it
very
was
well
so
be.
fast. I don't know that it would change my opinion. I got to tell you this:
Yeah.
if we take only 3 seconds of that video, there's not a jury in the world that wouldn't convict the dude
Hmm.
of like all fucking four of them,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But like if you take, I've watched it about 75 times now, which
Yeah.
isn't a lot. It's a
Oh,
minute
sure.
video.
Yeah.
Like we're talking less than 2 hours,
Yep.
but it's like it's important, right? So if you take the time on it, like a jury would, I can't imagine anyone convicting.
No, no, I agree. I actually, I mean, I mean, no disrespect to anyone out there, but like this case is almost a little boring for me from a use of force perspective because it's honestly that clear cut.
And look, you know my feelings. We ended on disagreement with Renee Good. Like
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Ross
Yep.
like should be apprehended for and tried for murder.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I think he did it wrong.
Yep.
Uh, as a criminal defense attorney, I'm not generally a fan of cops,
Yeah.
and in this instance, so like I feel it's important to like lay the distinction. It's not just because we're talking about a black male and Renee Good was a white woman.
Oh,
In my view, that has and should have nothing to do with it. Alex Preddy
100%.
was, I think, a white guy.
Yeah.
Didn't matter to me that he was a dude.
Sure.
Like I still think that was wrong.
Sure.
In this instance, like the reason I thought that Jonathan Ross had no case that he should be prosecuted is there's no universe in which even if you believe your life is in danger, a bullet is stopping a 4,000 pound vehicle. The
Sure. Yeah.
worst you're doing is turning that into an unguided missile,
Yep.
right?
Sure.
In this instance, there can be no dispute that a butcher's knife is a deadly weapon.
Yep.
And further, this cop had been cut. Like, remains to be seen if he was proactively stabbed by Corey or if he got cut inadvertently in a tussle.
Sure.
And I've got to say, to me, that doesn't matter
We might never know.
because,
Yeah.
like, if I'm in that moment, I don't, you're not processing at that speed. Like, oh, I got cut, but he didn't mean it.
Yeah. And that's something, and we talk about this a little bit with Renee Good analysis, I believe.
We talked a lot about timing
Yeah.
and the speed at which you can recognize and make decisions with the wheel turn and
And
stuff.
people think, like, when we talk about justification for using deadly force, right? The reasonable belief that you or another person is in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. And we have all of these like logical steps that we make our arguments out and our justifications out. Your brain doesn't work like that.
No.
Your brain takes snapshots, takes like photographs of information, and then the way that you react and you process that, you don't go through like a logical, okay, he's pulling a knife and therefore my response options are I could tase him, I could draw my gun, I could create distance. Your brain in that split second immediately searches for um, a pattern. It's called pattern recognition, right? It looks for something similar that you've experienced in the past, and usually the first thing it finds, it says we're going to try that, and if that doesn't work, it goes to the next thing. So that's how we think and how we react in these high stress dynamic situations. So I think that's something worth noting too. Um, but yeah, that knife is a deadly weapon, like full stop, like unquestionably, and to the point where I think one of the problems when people see this is that people don't understand knives. Like knives are nasty, man. Um, he's got that knife, and from one video, it's hard to tell, but he's maybe got the knife out like this. I'm not sure how he's holding it, but like all he has to do with a sharp knife is that. And
So
he nicks the right part of someone's body. He hits a carotid, he hits a femoral, And that person can bleed out and die within a minute.
I want you to tell me more about what you saw in terms of the knife because I didn't, and I
Yeah.
have like people have posted stills with circles. I'm like, what the fuck? Like I
Yeah.
still don't see it. So
Yep.
I definitely want to hear that. Uh, I know from our previous pod that you're okay talking about this, and so I just want to do like a little bit of a basis for comparison,
Hmm.
and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So you know, like I consulted you after I was mugged in New York,
Yeah.
and what I said at that point, like the whole thing had to take a minute and a half, right?
Sure.
To me, it seemed like a half hour, 45 minutes. In my theory, I don't know, but it like I think science will back it up someday. Is that we don't usually multitask. We don't usually simultaneously process. And in that moment, since I was like absolutely in fear of my life and my adrenaline hit spike, like all of the chemicals that could be flowing were flowing.
Yeah.
Like a simultaneous processing was happening in a way that after the fact I can only process linearly. Like I
Correct.
can't remake that.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this up because you've been involved in one or two officer involved shootings where you were the officer shooting,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, I I don't think that's how you describe it, but correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, like it sounds to me,
Yeah.
and I think it's important and interesting to talk about. My father-in-law had posted that like he's 84 and like pickleball balls come at him fast and he still gets them,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that point, but like if the pod accomplishes anything, I want it for to be for people to understand what it's like in these situations and how it's not like normal life. It's not like watching the video 75 times. It's
Yeah.
not like so like in those experiences, just first like if you're okay talking about it, in those
Yeah.
experiences, was your brain function in your recollection normal? Was it enhanced? Was it limited?
Yeah.
Was it tunnel vision? Like
It's
what is it like to be involved in a situation like that?
it's interesting because kind of depends, and even through one incident, you can experience different things, right? I mean, in the incident, in the shooting that I was involved in, like there's a point where we're approaching a subject where I can very clearly remember like thinking tactically, like this is my plan. I remember this. So again, it was an individual with a knife, turned focused on my partner, and I can recall noticing like, oh crap, like this is not good. Like he's going to charge my partner. Like this is going to result in a shooting if we don't do something else. And I remember being able to at that time, because I think because I had time, being able to logically think, I need to go to my taser and I need to flank him. I need to get this taser shot off. He's focused on him. I'm gonna move right. And like my recollection of it, now I don't know how my brain was working in that case, if that was just that pattern recognition and it's like, you see this, do this. But for me, it was like, okay, I felt like I could rationally think at that point. Um, I saw him start moving toward my partner, fired the taser, recalled that, saw him starting to charge, saw my partner starting to shoot, and then being like, recalling that this taser doesn't work anymore. This is no good. I need to get in the fight, dropping the taser, bringing up the rifle, and then from that point on, it's autopilot. It's the safety comes off. That you find the dot, you shoot and track your target until the target goes down. That's all autopilot. And I remember snapshots from that, and obviously, like it plays like a movie in my head. Um, but at that point, it was like, here's the stimulus. The rest there was autopilot. That was an
Yeah.
ingrained reaction. That was muscle memory, for lack of a better term.
Right. Like and it's autopilot on purpose. I mean,
Yeah, it
I
has
don't
to be
know.
at that
I don't
point.
think I heard it in your class, but like the thing the guys and I talk about is not repeating until you get it right. It's repeating until you can't get it wrong. Until you
Yeah.
can
Yep.
blindfold me inebriated and on mushrooms and I can still field strip the Glock,
Yeah.
right?
I would liken it. I use a lot of driving analogies because almost everybody drives. It's like when you're coming up to maybe a bit of a traffic jam or there's a little chaos in front of the road in front of you, and you're like, what's going on here? I'm going to slow down and I'm going to move over to the right. Like you're thinking, you're analyzing. You're still thinking logically. You're kind of processing and trying to predict. And then it's like car darts out in front of you and you're like brake and swerve. And it's totally autopilot, right? Because your brain remembers, I just checked my blind spot. I knew that was good there. And now it's like, I have to act now. And now it's autopilot because you don't have time to be like, oh shit, I should hit the brakes and probably swerve. It's too late.
Right. You can't make that conscious decision, although it's interesting in your narrative. And I mean, I'm conscious of as humans, we after the fact impute reason. I deal with this with lawyers all the time when
100%.
they're trying to justify
Yep.
how they behaved at trial, and I know that they fucked up.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, but my strategy was, it's like, dude, just, and I don't even think they're intentionally being dishonest.
No,
It's
of
just the
course
way the
not.
human
Yeah.
brain works.
Yep.
But that is to say, like, you have a particular sense recollection of, like, I need to tase and plank this dude. So, like, you were planning for that part. Your conscious mind was working.
Yep.
You recognize it didn't work. And that's when it went to autopilot.
Yes. Yep.
That's, I mean, like, look, I think if anything is relative to the incident we're talking about today, it's like that is instructive because you can watch that video 75 times, but you can't fit that hour and a half into the 2 seconds where shit went down.
No,
Right.
exactly.
And
Yep.
I just don't think, as much as my 84-year-old father-in-law like hits the pickleball that's coming at him fast, I just don't believe that in the split second that the second taser worked, in my view.
Yeah.
Like I think that his posture and the tension of his body changed and he dropped. I
Yep.
just don't think a cop could have recognized it. I don't think a
Yeah.
human could have recognized that.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, even if, even if it was effective, um, use of force is judged from the perspective of that officer, a reasonable officer
right.
knowing what he knew at the time. So if he says, I didn't even realize the second officer fired the taser. I thought the guy just went down and then I saw him producing a knife. I'm at arm's length. I know that knife has a high likelihood of causing death or great bodily harm to me or any of the other officers within arm's length. And then, so I had no other choice. That's
There's
going to be justified.
two interesting things to note there. Like first, and it frustrated me with the Renee Good discussion, but I mean, you're aptly stating the law that a person is required to be reasonable, not right. Like, I will say, I
Yes,
think cops get more of the benefit of the doubt than civilians do when it comes
probably.
to trials on that matter.
Yeah, probably.
Which, if we have time, we'll talk about a little bit later, like why the dude's not in custody,
Hmm.
even though the chief has characterized it as a homicide, right?
Yep.
But the second thing is like it's not just the cop who was cut, the cop who was the shooter. It's your apprehension of the danger to others,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
it's not just that, you're in control of your little corner of what's going on. It's that there's this knife and there's three of my colleagues, right?
Yes. 100%. 100%. And I think that weighs in for me, that weighs in even more heavily than the danger to myself.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to see my colleagues get bit. One of my colleagues, sorry, get hurt. One of my colleagues got bit in a fight when we were fighting. A while ago, and yeah, she got bit on the arm like pretty badly, and
Mhm.
it's like you feel horrible about that after the fact. So there is definitely, I think, good officers have a drive to protect other innocent people, to protect people in the community, but that drive is then especially strong to protect one another, right? Because I mean, there's a camaraderie that's just like in the military, same thing, right? You don't abandon your brothers, you protect your brothers. So
So if we have time, I want to come back to that, and I'm just going to flag it for future conversation, if nothing else. So I wanted to ask you, in regard to that, you mentioned, like we were talking about, it's not just a fear of a danger to you, but also to others, like your colleagues. And you mentioned like soldiers would have that camaraderie. I've got a friend who raised the point that she often hears, cops talking about, you put on the badge every day, not knowing if you're going to come home at night. She's particularly heard their spouses talking about
sure.
that, and that's fair. I mean, you got both ends of that, both you
Mhm.
and your wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, so like her rebuttal, and it might sound harsh, right? But I take her point. In terms of soldiers, their lives are not the most important. Their mission is like
Yeah,
when they sign up, they know that they might be sacrificing their lives for the mission.
sure.
Like
Yep.
it's more important that the mission succeeds than it is that they come home.
Yes.
We will spare no effort to get them home, but that's after the mission is completed,
Correct.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And so her contention is that with cops, the survival of community members, especially ones who might be having mental health crises, like that's part of the job description. It's more important that that crazy fucker who's trying to stab you goes home than it is that you do.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know that I subscribe to that, but I think it's an
Yep.
interesting point, and I'm wondering if you've thought about it.
So she's got the right theory, but I would say she's misguided in a few things. So 100% the mission is the most important thing. Okay, but we have to define what the mission is. I will push back against officers who say the most important thing is you go home at the end of your shift. I will say, no, that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is your mission. Okay. Because let's just take like the most extreme circumstance, active shooter at a school.
Hmm.
If the most important thing for me that day was to go home,
You
I
get
wouldn't go
Uvalde.
into that school.
Yeah, you get Uvalde,
Yeah, exactly.
which
I would sit at the station.
might have been legal, but
Yeah,
it's not
it's
laudable
morally reprehensible. Okay, so
for a dude in that position. I'm not going to say
yeah.
that grandma should rush in,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
but
like I signed up for this. 100% agree with that. Okay. That said, um, what is my mission? That individual, Mr. Ruiz or whoever it is, they have made a decision to endanger they made a decision to endanger the life of somebody else. This isn't an innocent person on the street. Okay? This is a person committing a violent act who's had opportunities to take a different path, who's had opportunities to surrender. Okay? No, I'm not going to put my life on the line for him. And point out any other crazy individual who would. It's illogical. No, I'm not going to do it. We have something that honestly I believe drives everything we do in law enforcement, and it's called the priority of life scale. And some people, it's
actually I haven't heard of this
yeah,
before.
some people change and they call it the safety priority scale because saying that one life has priority versus another is politically incorrect. But the meaning is the same,
Okay.
and this drives all of the tactics. This I believe drives everything we do as law enforcement. So number one, the most important life, the most important safety on that scale is hostages, innocent bystanders, victims, right? Because that's who we're out to serve. That's who we're out to protect. Okay. Number two on the list is officers. Okay. So we will put ourselves in dangerous situations. I'm not saying we're going to go on a suicide mission, but we will put ourselves in very dangerous situations to protect victims, hostages, innocent bystanders.
Mm.
Okay. Below us are the suspects, the people whose actions are creating that danger. Why should I put my life in greater danger to protect somebody who's doing something that's morally wrong, doing something that's dangerous, that's endangering other people?
Mhm.
Now, and then of course like property and evidence and stuff like that's
Sure.
below that if we want to get into those weeds.
Well, and
Okay.
just to clarify, because
Yeah.
I think it's a good bookend for your point,
Yeah.
uh, someone's property is never going to be worth someone's life.
No,
It doesn't.
not
It
even the
doesn't matter.
offenders.
It doesn't matter if the offender, the citizen accused.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if the suspect is taking lighter fluid and a lighter to $1 million worth of music equipment
Correct.
at the Capitol,
Yep.
which did not happen, but was
Thankfully.
threatened. Right.
Yes. Yep.
Um, like that's not something you shoot someone over. Like I don't
No.
care if it's
No.
Yo-Yo Ma's
Yeah.
cello. Like
Yeah.
you don't shoot over a cello.
Some guy comes in here and breaks into your apartment when you're not here and barricades himself. And we're outside with the SWAT team. He's here all by himself, man. I know all of your stuff in here means a lot to you, but as a SWAT officer or as a police officer, whatever, I will let that guy destroy every single piece of property you own before I shoot him. I mean, like if I have to choose between the two.
Right.
If I have a less lethal intervention option that I think I can reasonably use to prevent him from doing that, and I can reasonably do it without creating a unreasonable risk of danger to himself or myself as an officer, yeah, I'll do that. I'm not going to let a guy burned.
Drone with taser
Yeah, if he
fine.
starts lighting the place on fire, I'm going to try to come in with, maybe a less lethal or gas or things like that, right? But if it's really like shoot him versus let him break a bunch of your shit, like he can break your shit all day long.
So it occurs to me just in the course of this conversation that firefighters are a good example of the folks we're talking about,
Mhm.
like soldiers who put the mission before themselves. And we don't necessarily fault them if they don't. Like
Sure.
you can't approach a 3,000-degree flame to save a little baby. Like your body just won't do it.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean there are limitations, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not a
But
suicide mission.
but they will literally run into burning buildings,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And that said, like not necessarily knowing that they're doing it for an arsonist,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So I guess the qualification or the question I have regarding that, like, it all makes sense if the person you're dealing with is sane. You know,
Yeah.
we've said about Ruiz, and I don't know if he was or not. I mean, he could have just been a bad guy. He very easily could have, because like sometimes bad
Yeah.
guys are crazy. Sometimes here's I think I don't want to diminish this point. Sometimes crazy people seem like bad guys and they're not. Like they're
Absolutely.
really not culpable.
Yep.
Like they're doing shit that
Yeah.
I mean, the way the law phrases it is they don't know the difference or they can't control
Yep.
themselves,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, so how do you think that interfaces with the safety hierarchy?
I'm still not willing to die for that person.
Yeah,
Like I'll take some risk to myself. Don't get me wrong. Like I will take some risk to that. And I mean, a lot of times we get injured taking people like that into custody to protect themselves from themselves. I was talking about my partner who got bit. Like,
mm,
we're taking that woman into custody. Yes, she committed a crime, but she was absolutely developmentally disabled and this and that. And like, she was a danger to others. And like, she wasn't a criminal, but she could not be allowed to stay where she was because she was going to continue to endanger, other people and herself and things like that. So it's like my partner got hurt trying to ultimately help that woman
mm,
because just letting her run loose and create
sure.
havoc in the community was not good for her, much less anybody else. So like we will take on danger, but I'm not going to die for a mentally ill person to save their life. Why is their life worth more than mine?
Well, it seems like practically speaking, in that circumstance,
Yeah.
I mean, in Ruiz would be a very, very, very edge case if in fact he was just mentally ill and not bad, right?
Yep. And
But
and
like
and
the
let's real quick, like let's also, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's also acknowledge that it's not like you're mentally ill, you're a criminal, and there's this clear line. It's like there's a shade of gray, there's a sliding scale.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think a practical argument for not falling on that sword or jumping in front of that bullet is what happens when you're gone. Like I
Yeah.
know that a concern, and like it can be a self-serving excuse, right? But like a concern I've heard articulated in terms of he could have gotten my gun is he could have gotten my gun, like, and then or if they have a gun
Sure.
already, like
Yep.
who's at risk? Like if he's gonna stab an officer, who else is at risk?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Like
Um,
that seems to be, even if you're willing to go down, if you go down, there's no one else standing between him and the
yes.
rest of the community.
And I make this point sometimes. Like this is something that I train with our officers, especially when we're talking about like hostage rescue. Um, it's your life. What you want to do with your life is your own thing. Now, I'm going to say you have a responsibility to your partners and your wife and your kids and all of that stuff. But if you want to hold off using force as an individual and your life is the only one at stake, you want to put yourself in that position, I guess that's your prerogative. But when there's another innocent life, right? If you're, if Sarah is being held hostage, okay, and an officer has a chance to take out the hostage taker, a good chance, and they decide not to because they don't want to use force against that guy, that's not that officer's call to make. Like, if it's him being threatened, he can put himself in that position, but I don't feel that he has the right to make that call for Sarah, for your hostage. Like, wouldn't you want that officer to do the thing that's like, yeah, I want you to save my girlfriend's life,
I
right?
certainly would. Yeah,
Of course, right?
she would say no.
She would say no,
Um,
but again, she's in that situation. Maybe she can make that call for herself.
right.
There are some
No, and look,
legit
I
pacifists
might
out
say
there.
no, right?
Yeah,
But like that's I don't know
yeah,
that she would sacrifice me
yeah.
for something.
Exactly. But
So
like, I mean, if as a friend, like if
you better
my
not say no.
kid was being, killed or something like that, or
Oh yeah,
I
that's an
would,
easy case. Like if it comes
yeah,
to our kids, like
sure,
there's
yeah,
no one.
exactly, yeah. But it's like, so it's when you're bargaining or you're playing with your own life, just from kind of an ethical morals side of things, I'm kind of like, it's your life, man. Like, you do what you want.
Yeah,
But if someone else's life is on the line that you are responsible, you've taken an oath to protect, even though it's hard and it's a hardship for you to have to use deadly force against somebody, you're obligated to do it. You have a
yeah,
duty to do it at that point.
that's interesting.
And I'm
I
not
mean,
saying
that's
that's the
hard.
case here,
I hear you
but I'm
though.
just saying in general, in
It
other
could
cases,
be.
it
I
could
mean,
be.
we're all going to be interested in
Yep.
what the
Yeah.
DOJ comes out with.
I mean, imagine if that officer doesn't use deadly force because he really doesn't want to shoot that guy, and the next swipe of his arm cuts the throat of the officer
Yeah.
standing next to him.
So my friend's point in terms of you take the job,
Yeah.
that's the risk is not entirely invalid. I mean the premise or the principle behind it
Yep.
is the Spider-Man thing.
Yeah.
Uh, great power is great responsibility,
Absolutely.
and so when you have the power that we give cops, like to carry a gun and tell other people what the rules are and to like restrain their persons and literally chain them and confine them and like all these things that would just be like if I did them as a citizen would be a crime, would be abuse,
Yeah.
right? When we give someone that power, like that the exchange is that they're valuing the community over themselves.
Yep.
And I'm not that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm disagreeing with you. I think it's a perspective worth
Yeah.
marinating in.
Well, and I think I will add this too, because nobody in the community sees this. And that is that I see officers all the time putting themselves in significant danger so they don't have to shoot people, so they don't have to use deadly force, so they don't have to use high levels of force. Um, it is absolutely amazing that we don't shoot 10 times as many people that we do. Again, course of my career, I've been involved in one officer involved shooting, okay, directly. I can think of half a dozen other times where I absolutely could have justified shooting somebody, but
Yeah.
I didn't because I didn't want to. And yes, in some of those cases, did I put myself maybe at greater danger because I waited a little bit longer? Absolutely. But that is by far that is what officers are out there doing on a daily basis, and nobody sees that because we don't report that. It's, hey, we got lucky, or the officer gave him a little extra chance, and he wound up surrendering. He dropped the gun, or he dropped the knife instead of. Happens all the time. We never see it. That is the norm.
So I appreciate that during yesterday's conference, the chief had made sure to underscore that Corey Ruiz is not, in fact, handcuffed because that was going around like wildfire
Oh
that the
yeah,
cops
yeah.
had fucking smoked and executed.
That
And
would
I've
have
got to
totally
say,
changed the situation.
so I want to just take a second because another notion that was going around aside from the dude being cuffed,
Mhm.
which he was not, and
Yep.
that's how we got in a hung, was like there was a cop laughing, and first it was like the cop who shot the person was laughing,
Yeah.
and like I might have seen a video with like a cop who wasn't the shooter
Yeah.
laughing. Like, let's just be clear: when I'm sitting next to an accused rapist during trial,
Yeah.
we will laugh about shit.
Oh, sure.
It's not necessarily what happened to the supposed victim.
Yeah.
It might be that the bailiff farted,
Yeah. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like you
Yep.
don't know, like these are people who are on the job for 8, 10, 12 hours. You can't assume, like, just because they're not standing there with a solemn pose,
Yeah.
that they're somehow, like, delighting in the death of Corey
No, of course
Ruiz.
not.
Like, that is just folly.
No.
I mean, and I don't need your amen, but it's like, you've been on scenes like this.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
you talk about what's going on with your family. It could have been,
Yep.
my second grader just said he loved me more than mom. I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean,
So this was like after a while after the fact, or officers on the periphery, or
yeah, yeah,
okay, yeah,
I would say within probably hour of the shooting having happened, like they were establishing a perimeter,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like everybody was around recording, as I
yeah,
believe they should,
yeah.
right?
I mean, it could have been as simple as officer comes in to relieve another, or they're coming over to check and see, hey, how's you doing? And you're like, well, you know, told my wife I was going to be home at 3 o'clock today. Like, that ship has sailed, right?
That's it.
Yeah,
So, like,
you
even if
know,
it was the officer who was shooting,
yeah,
like, that's the kind of comment
yeah,
that isn't
yeah.
offensive. That doesn't mean you're laughing about a
No,
dude's death.
no, and people, anybody who's been in a situation or been in a profession where you have to deal with dark shit, dark, stressful, traumatic shit, like you use humor to get through it. And I get it's we do have to be careful about that when we're in the public eye, 100%, because we don't want to appear insensitive. It's also why I kind of get on officers when they are very loose with their, and I swear a few times in the podcast here, but when we're in contact with the public, I really think officers need to minimize their swearing because it's a professionalism thing, right? But yeah, it absolutely doesn't mean that they're laughing about the situation or they think it's lighthearted or they're callous or anything like that. That's
Yeah,
just not.
I remember your comment on it when Jonathan Ross called Renee Good a fucking bitch, right? Which
Yeah,
doesn't, like, it does, like, the shooting already happened.
yeah,
Like, it might go to his mindset, right?
yeah.
But, like, that's just not a smart fucking thing to say
It's not a
when
good
you're,
look, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
it isn't. I mean,
yep.
it might tell you about, it won't tell you about his legal justification. It might tell you about his character, right?
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep. And I mean, it's just, yeah, you got to mind your P's and Q's like that. It's just a
Let me,
experience thing, and yeah.
so the officer who shot Corey Ruiz 3 times, seemingly in the head,
Hmm.
uh, couple questions. Like, I feel like I know the answer to one and not the other, but just for this rabbit hole a little bit, why not shoot him in the leg or the hip or the offending arm that has the knife,
Sure.
and Jesus, 3 fucking times in the head?
Yeah.
Like, what's up with that?
So first of all, I think it's important for people to understand officers don't use deadly force because it's deadly. They use it because it's reliable. Okay. It's the most effective way to immediately or very quickly stop someone from doing something.
Mhm.
Okay. So why not, you know, a few questions, I guess, or a few ways to go with this. Why not shoot him in the hand or shoot him in the arm? Number one, because it's a very difficult target to hit. Because that arm has got the knife or whatever, and it's flailing around like this. You know, I'm a pretty good shooter, and you've shot. And I realize we're probably talking this more for our audience, right? You know how hard it is to hit a static target sometimes, as do I. To hit something moving around like this is just, it's not realistic.
What
You
about like
can't
the
do it.
gut? I mean, why
Yeah.
not? Like, the head's a smaller target. Why not just
So
aim
the
a
head,
foot to the south
all sorts of reasons could be. The head might have just been the target that was there, right? Um,
with other officers in the
with
scene?
other officers, it could be that that was the target that was clear. It could be that again, that was the target. Um, the target areas, again, the goal here is it's not to kill somebody. I realize shooting them in the head or in the upper chest is likely to do that. But the goal is to quickly get them to stop doing the assault of the dangerous behavior that they're doing. The way we do that is by rapidly incapacitating their, physiological structure of their body. The two most effective ways to do that are the upper chest, where your heart, lungs, lots of blood rich organs are, or shutting down your central nervous system.
Which both those necessarily result in death.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I,
Like,
I like to tell people, death is kind of a side effect.
so I mean, I hear you. It's not the point. Like, if you had uh, a Star Trek beam that would teleport someone into a cell,
Yeah,
that would be the preferable option if it happened as instantaneous.
absolutely. Set
Like
taser,
a
just set
very
phasers to stun, right?
right.
Would love it if that technology
So,
existed.
and we should talk a little bit about this because, like, common refrain, among my people, and I agree with them, like, uh, stealing from cars, boosting cars, resisting arrest, what have you, is not a capital crime, and
Absolutely.
yet capital punishment was imposed.
Yep.
This is my people. So,
Yeah.
what? I mean, so tell me more about the. I don't think you finished on the why not shoot the
Yeah.
gut
Yeah.
or the leg, because like wouldn't someone shot in the kneecap be pissed off enough to just fucking give up?
Not necessarily. Lots of people. You can, look at cases from the military. There's guys, soldiers who go on missions. They complete their entire mission. They're flying back in the helicopter, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh man, I got shot. I got shot in the leg." They didn't even notice. Okay, so yes, sometimes people get a psychological stop. They get shot, and they're like, "Ooh, I don't want to shoot. I don't want to get shot anymore. That hurt. I'm done." Okay, um, but we can't count on that. We have to, at that point, right, where our life is in imminent danger, death or great bodily harm, we we need to force that person to stop because they need to be stopped right now, right this instant. And again, the two ways to do that are basically dropping their blood pressure by poking enough holes in their body where their blood pressure drops, they lose consciousness, or
Do you know how long that takes? Just out of
it all
curiosity.
depends. There's so many factors involved.
Okay.
It can be a few seconds. It can be anybody who's hunted, shot deer, and they'll run 100
It'll
yards
be a minute,
with no
not a
heart,
minute. It'll
right?
be it'll be a number of
So
seconds.
same thing. Yeah, so I mean it could be 15, 20, 30 seconds, who knows, right? It could be a long time. And that's why we shoot multiple times and we continue shooting until the threat is stopped. You start
So
shooting.
that's your account for the three.
Yes, that's part of my account for the three.
They were
Right?
fucking fast
They
though.
were
Like that
fast.
was
The other part is, again, how do you assess that? Right? I mean, like in that time, how much time does it take for you to process whether that's effective or not? So the officer, why did he fire 3 rounds? Well, because he started shooting when he saw the threat was there, and he stopped shooting when he felt the threat was ended.
yeah, it takes the brain a while to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking at least half, 3/4 of a second. And those 3 rounds, I would say, were definitely fired in less than a second. I would say maybe a little more than half a second, probably less than 3/4 of a second.
So further to your point about someone doesn't stop. I mean, we talked earlier. I think it's in this video about uh, the 10 shots at the dude who was hitting another dude with a
Yeah.
baseball bat,
Yep.
and how the first shot that got him didn't stop him. Like he went
Yeah.
right back to it.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's especially true with someone who's on certain kinds of drugs or
Oh yeah.
someone who's like mentally
Mentally
ill.
ill.
With
Absolutely.
there have been undercurrents with,
Yeah.
and like, look, I ain't saying he was that kind of mentally ill.
Yep.
Like we know that permeated his cases. It's just to say, well, I mean, a lot of the look, in my view, the officer could have known nothing about him,
Hmm.
and it would still have been justified based on what I saw.
Yes.
Uh, if he knew about him,
Yep.
like because the dude was renowned. Like I just heard
Yeah.
on national public radio through Wisconsin public radio this morning, like they were circuiting it through that this dude was very well known.
Yeah.
Everybody knows him.
Yep.
He's like a well-known local carrier. Like this is a small town, and all that's true, but that like cuts against the point that somehow the officer did it wrong. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you know, and we can get into his record here in a little bit, if you know that somebody is a prolific criminal, especially if they have a record as he did of resisting, of causing injury, things like that, I mean, that escalates things. That right off the bat allows you to justify a higher level of force because, hey, we've tried to arrest this guy how many times before? How many of us have been injured? We have sudden flight, we have the resisting, and then of course we have the weapon and stuff like that. And from going back from a physiological standpoint too, um, even if he's not mentally ill, even if he's not on drugs, he's got a lot of adrenaline pumping through his body too. And we
Yeah.
have to remember that too. Like adrenaline does, incredible things, and people can deal with all sorts of pain and things like that. So,
So let me ask this though. I mean, it's a point several friends have made, and I think it's a good one. One out of the four cops shot,
mhm,
and the other three didn't. My impression of them immediately afterwards is that they were very shocked
mhm,
that it happened. That's not of any legal significance, but I
yeah,
mean, when we do the math, we've got 75% of officers not using deadly force.
that's a good
Like,
question.
what
Yeah, yeah, it's a fair
do
question.
you have? Is that too much to spring on you, or do you have
No, no,
thoughts
no,
about
no.
that?
I think that's actually a fairly easy one. Really, is that ultimately we have to hear what the officers had to say. Some officers might not have seen the knife because of their angle. They might not have realized it. They had a taser in their hand, um, and they might have seen the
Two
knife.
of them, yeah.
Two of them, and they might have seen the knife. The second officer might have seen the knife and been like, "Oh shit." A taser at
Well,
that distance is not the appropriate weapon to use against the knife. I want to make that clear. At arm's length distance, the appropriate weapon to use against the person who's trying to cut you with a knife is a gun because it's reliable,
what
right?
about what about a baton?
So same thing there, right?
Do y'all still carry batons?
Some officers do, some don't. They're limited in effectiveness,
Mhm.
I think. They take a lot more physical skill to use and things like that. Like take the and
They seem brutal, but
yeah,
effective.
it depends. I've seen a lot of ineffective baton strikes.
Sure.
Again, because of drugs and adrenaline and things like that. When we compare the baton to the gun, again, it's not because it's deadly, it's because it's effective and it's easy to use. Imagine that the female officer there, and I'm not picking on her because she's female, she's just smaller, okay, less upper body strength. Her trying to hit that guy with a baton to stop a deadly assault versus pulling the trigger to shoot him. Okay, again, the gun is effective, and that's why we use it. The problem, if we go to those weapons that aren't as effective, is that they have to work right now. And if they don't, we don't have the time anymore to switch to a more effective weapon. At that distance, if the tracer doesn't work or the baton doesn't work, well, we're out of time anymore because now we're getting stabbed when we're trying to draw our gun, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what people need to keep in mind there. So that officer, tased, they may have seen the knife and they tased because that's what they had in their hand at that time. It caught him by surprise. They may not have shot because they didn't see it, because they didn't recognize it. They may not have shot because they were, in what we call condition black, right? They were overwhelmed. I don't know. There's so many different explanations why those other officers might not have shot, and honestly, it's kind of irrelevant because if the officer in that moment perceived that there was a deadly threat and it was reasonable, that's ultimately the standard.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean the boy officer who, in my view, deployed the taser was in the practice, like in
Hmm.
the process of trying to stomp
Hmm.
the dude. Like he was
Yeah.
in air with his
Yep.
like
Yeah.
when the gun went off, and he was like, "Oh fuck!"
Yeah.
Like he could have been. So like that
He might
was
have
another point
seen.
Sarah had made is
Yeah.
like the officers could have been hit like in such a close
Oh yeah.
range with like
Yep.
I mean it wasn't like what
Which could be another reason for basically a contact shot to the head.
okay.
Right? I mean, there's all sorts of again,
Somewhere
that's
focused because you know that
yeah.
your people are right there, so you're shooting the one part that's right there.
Yeah, exactly. That's, maybe there's no officer behind it. I mean,
Mm.
there's so many of those unknown questions that you just don't get until you have to listen to the officers and what they have to say. And it's not just officers. Any self-defense shooting, what the individual person makes a statement of and what they perceived is central to the investigation. That's super important.
Yeah. So the couple things I want to cover yet are a little bit more of an assessment of his record because
Yeah.
legally and practically, like I can say a little bit about the legally and practically, like I just think it's relevant. Like
Sure.
we've swung too far in the direction of not considering anything when in fact we all sort of get the vibe that a propensity to do something is a propensity to do something.
Yeah.
But then like where I'd like to wrap up is just kind of brainstorming. Like, I'm sure both you and I don't like this
Of
outcome,
course not.
and we'd hope that things could be different. And what might be different. So if it's cool with
Yeah.
you, I mean, do you want to like? How do you? What's your assessment in terms of how you think his record matters or doesn't?
Well, I think it matters in a couple ways because I think, for one, I genuinely would like to see these problems get solved. I don't think they'll ever get solved, but get improved. Um, Maybe I'm a little cynical, but I don't believe that everybody out there who's out there marching and all of that stuff these days truly wants this problem to go away, because there is, honestly, this is a $1 billion, $1 billion industry in this country.
Hmm.
All right. Just like homelessness. You've heard of the homeless industrial complex and how California spends $100,000 a year per homeless person, yet they have the worst.
Really?
Yeah. Yet they have the worst.
You couldn't get him a fucking trailer and some groceries for
Buy,
that?
buy him a damn house. I mean, like,
Yeah.
seriously, right? At that point, just give them the money. That's so, just like our military industrial complex, which, even as more of a conservative, I'll say that is 100% a thing. You have people, it's a self-licking ice cream cone in many ways. I think a lot of
Who
these.
are you talking about though? I mean, so like there's this local kid
Yeah.
yesterday during that. I mean, I'll just say it was a shit show. Like the
Mm-hmm.
press conference that
Mm-hmm.
had the mayor and the police chief and
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
interrupted by protesters. And like I'll say
Yep.
more like my immediate thought was when the dude Kanye'd the chief, my immediate thought was like arrest him. Like
Sure.
you don't get to just walk into someone else's press conference
Yep.
and do the I'm gonna let you finish in a minute. Like
Yeah.
if people wanted to hear you, they'd come to you. That's not why they're here,
Yep.
right? I think I didn't think this in the moment. I think the police chief, I don't know him personally,
Sure.
showed remarkable restraint. Like, if there's any notion that Madison cops can't de-escalate, watch that fucking video,
No kidding. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Like he voluntarily gave over the mic for the airing of grievances, and it wasn't until another young black man. I just followed him. It was I think it's Clyde Mayweather, something like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a
Yep. Yep.
local kid,
Okay.
and
Yep.
like I'm sure I don't agree with him on everything,
Yeah. Yep.
but what he said to this dude who was bogarting the mic
Yeah.
was, "We want to have a conversation, but a conversation entails more. It
And
entails hearing shit
and
we don't want to hear."
good for him for standing up like
Woof.
that. Like, that's a brave thing to do, and I commend that young man for doing so.
Yeah, it was. So the whole
Yeah.
thing, like, I wasn't impressed with the
Yeah.
chief's decision to, abdicate the
Yeah.
mic, but it's like it
Well,
worked out in a way that was actually
it
pretty
did.
impressive.
It did. And I mean,
Shit the nightly news is getting wrong. The first video when I was trying to
oh, yeah.
find the one for us to watch was like very flamboyantly attack the police with a switchblade. Like
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
find ways to be more inept. I mean,
I
like
know.
that's just
There's a fixed blade knife.
fucking
Yeah.
6 inch fix. Like good
Yeah.
luck finding a switchblade that's more than
Yeah.
like 3 inch blade,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So anyway, that
Yeah.
that aside, where are we going with that?
Okay. Okay. I want to finish the point, and the point is that, while I believe the majority of people out there mean
Yeah.
well, I think sometimes their empathy is misguided. There are people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year working for certain nonprofits and leading these nonprofits, that if we solved all these officer involved shootings, and if Madison, if racism disappeared tomorrow in Madison, these people would be out of a job.
Okay, so like Ben Crump, right?
Yep.
But like he's a lawyer from down south and he's just
Yeah.
I joked with Sarah the moment we heard this,
Yep.
like it's going to be 12 seconds before we hear from Ben Crump. And in fact, yesterday we found he was hired on.
Yep.
Like whatever, like maybe he's a good attorney. I haven't
Sure.
seen the results,
Sure.
but
Honestly, and
but like
I'm
are you
not
talking
gonna.
about local folk like the
Yeah, and
office of
I'm not going to name
independent?
names. I'm not going to go into
Okay.
there. People out there can do the research themselves. They can look into where the county and the city sends millions of dollars every single year to some of these non-government organizations, and I just ask, what results have they produced? I'm just going to leave it at that, because
Okay.
there are people who make salaries well into the six figures, And I have yet to see what they produce.
with the private agencies.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And this is Madison particularly.
yeah,
Like we're not
yeah, and
talking about
it's Madison in particular.
BLM where it's a national
Yeah,
organization where they
$60
got
million
right.
disappeared from BLM. Right.
But
So that's a huge level. We're not maybe talking that level here, but there are people out there, unfortunately, who are motivated by money not to actually fix this problem. So, because let me ask you this, okay? And you can go look at like the Washington Post, for instance, tracks every single person that they can find who's killed by law enforcement every single year. Okay. And you can go through all of the, but anywhere from about 1,000 to 1,200, I think, every single year. Okay. Most of them who are shot. And the one thing you will find, the common theme in essentially year to year, every single one of these cases is that the person who was killed was resisting or fighting law enforcement. Okay. So that doesn't mean all those shootings were justified. There are usually several throughout the course of the year that aren't. But the common thread is that they were resisting or fighting law enforcement. So I would ask you this: where would it make sense if we really want to preserve human life? Where would it make sense to spend our time and money? Is it nitpicking? And I don't even say nitpicking, going after cases like this, which legally, I think we agree are fairly clear cut, just legally, justifiably? Or is it maybe that we should be educating people not to fight with the police? Why don't they spend any time or any money doing that? Why is always the focus on what the officers do? It's immediately what the officers do. There's no focus on maybe what we can improve our mental health system. Maybe that somebody should have been held accountable in the courts. Maybe that we should be educating people, don't run from the police.
yeah,
That's why I'm
so
skeptical.
is a liberal patriot, like I'm not on the same page with you in terms of running from the police
Mm,
or even non-assaultive resisting.
okay.
Um, that said, there's a huge difference between running and or non-assaultive resisting.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I can lay down and say "fuck you," like try to carry me because I'm big,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's non-assaultive
We
resisting.
would call that passive resistance. There's a
Sure,
difference
that's
between
that's better. That's a
active
better
resistance and
phrase.
passive
Yeah, it's
resistance.
better to use the right phrases. Like I
Absolutely.
was just
Yep.
making
No,
that
no,
up
I
in the
think, yep,
moment.
I get what you're saying.
So there's a difference. Like as a liberal patriot, I would say passive resistance is your fucking human right.
As a cop, I would say I agree with you.
And I am not a fan of complying. Like our founders did not comply. We did not
Yeah.
like that's not the American spirit or ethos.
Yep.
Uh, and and it's not obey any lawful order. I'm not in the military,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
that would apply to a soldier, not a citizen.
Sure.
That said, there's a world of difference between that and stabbing a cop,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I'm not saying Corey Ruiz did that. I can't. I'm not going to overstate the case. Like
Sure.
there's a chance that that officer who shot him
Yeah.
got cut.
Oh, yeah.
And if I grab
Inadvertently.
my knife right now and we wrestle,
Oh, yeah.
like you might get an
Probably will.
owie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Um,
That could have been inadvertent.
so it's not to say, but I also wouldn't expect the officer to process that in the moment.
Yep.
So that said, I mean, I wanted to qualify that like
Yeah.
this isn't a complete amen session. I am not, especially in an age of ice, brother. Like, look, I did a ride along with you. I'm a fan of how you handle yourself.
Yeah.
It's a 180 from what I see, like stuff that I've actually looked into with ice. Like
Sure.
you are not the same creature,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
So there are you know there are points about ice engagement that I would not say apply to Madison cops that don't
I would
apply
agree. Yep.
to folks in Dane County. I just to me it seems a shame that I have to make that point anymore. It's a severe change in tone that we've seen with
Mm.
how ICE is implementing things.
Hmm.
And like I don't want to get too far afield and age as Trump. Like Obama was not great on immigration.
Sure.
Holman worked under him too.
Yep.
Um, but it's just to say, so I hear your point though, and the overall point being like all this attention that we're spending on the at worst 3 seconds, because at 3 seconds this does look like an execution,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
uh 2 minutes, actually not even 2 minutes, like the longest version of this video we saw where it's clear that it was self-defense and defense of others
Yeah.
is a minute 20,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you can watch that in detail and come away with a contrary conclusion. If you're watching a different angle, whatever, we saw how angles differ with Renee Good. Like
Absolutely. Yep.
there's one angle of Renee Good that made it look like Jonathan Ross got run over. He didn't,
No. No.
right?
Yep.
um so yeah, I mean, on that I take your point. Tell me where, like, what you think is important to know
Mm.
about his record.
Yeah. So I think what's important, and again, we can look at this from two ways. One is, um, again, did the officers know about his record? Which I think we covered, right? It's relevant if they knew about it. But the other way is like, how do we prevent this from happening in the past? So I went on to our online Wisconsin Circuit Court records, and I pulled off
CCAP.
CCAP, it's called, and I pulled off. Actually, my friend, one of the guys I worked with, found all of his cases, sent me the case numbers. So then I went back on there and I downloaded all of the PDF summaries and this and that, and I fed it into AI and whatnot.
So was this all publicly available
All
stuff?
publicly available. Yep,
Okay.
yep, yeah. I won't, you know, anything, any records or anything like that that are only available to law enforcement. I won't, touch that. That's not
So
official investigation, right?
we talked a little bit. I
Yeah.
went to the courthouse
Yep.
and I wasn't going to pay $1.25 per copy, but I took like 200 pictures of sentencing transcripts, of judgments of conviction,
All public
just
record.
so that we could be on the same page.
Yep.
So we're talking about the same thing.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what did you find?
So I found since 2007,
Hmm.
he has had 25 unique Dane County cases. Now, those aren't arrests. Those are cases where he was charged, and likely his arrest numbers were higher because sometimes people get arrested. There's probable cause. The DA says, we're not gonna charge this, or he sat the weekend. We're gonna plead this to a county DC or something, and we'll, I mean, even we do that to an extent in law enforcement too. Yesterday, I had a guy who was overdosing at one of the probation and parole offices, and it's like the guy's clearly on narcotics. He just got out of jail yesterday. He's on probation. The guy's like he needs treatment. Do I need to go and do that investigation and charge him again with a drug? Like, no, he's got all the supervision he needs. Like, so it's like they got him to the hospital, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to deal with this. It doesn't do me or him or anyone any good to throw another charge into the system, right? So I totally get that. So 25 unique Dane County cases that I found. I then again I plugged this into some AI and I looked through it. I haven't gone line by line, but we had really good data going in. I'm pretty confident that everything here is correct. So I looked at so let's see, since 2007, for what it's worth, that's an average of 1.4 new cases per year. And I said, what is our maximum exposure? How much time was he facing for those charges? Okay. And convicted of everything and was sentenced to the maximum time in prison. Would he be facing? So when we add that all up for all his 20 something years of criminal history, including enhancers, so after a while in Wisconsin you become a repeater, right?
Hmm.
So because you're a kind of a habitual criminal, penalties go up, things like that, or you commit the same offense over and over again. 271 years, 1 month, and 15 days.
Wow.
Now that's consecutive, right?
Sure.
So that's if we stack. You get charged with five different crimes. We stack, you know, 5 years plus 5 years plus 5 years plus 5 years. Say 5 years for each, 25 years. Unless you murder somebody, multiple people, I rarely see sentences being handed out consecutively. Most of the time, in my experience, I don't know about yours, but they tend to go concurrently, right?
Yep.
So, okay. So basically, concurrently means, well, what would he be exposed to? What would he be facing if essentially we look at what is the worst crime? What is the highest punishment he could get for one individual charge for each case? In that case, it gets knocked down to 110 years, 1 month, and 19 days. So a little bit less, but still pretty significant. Then I looked at what was the estimated aggregate custodial sentence imposed, avoiding like explicit concurrent duplication. So,
Right.
so we looked at cross-referenced cases. A lot of times somebody will be released on bail and then they'll catch another case and they'll catch another case. What I saw was then, difficult to say. He didn't serve that much time. I'm sure of it. I would say
No.
probably 2 to 5.
Yeah, my reconstruction was 2 to 3.
2 to 3. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I think he got 3 years on an injury to an officer, uh, and he had very significant county credit.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yep.
just the way it works is if you're sitting in county jail and you can't post bond, the time that you're sitting in jail counts toward your eventual sentence.
Yeah.
That's all. So
Which is reasonable.
I believe it was Genovese that sentenced him to 3 in, something like 3 in and 3 out. So that's the other thing. Like when we're talking about exposure, and I don't know if your number's taken into account, if you've got like a low level felony, like a lower level felony where there's a 6 year max, in Wisconsin, that's usually just cut in half. It's what we call bifurcated, where that's half in, half out. So you spend 3 years in actual prison and then 3 years on extended supervision, wherein if you fuck up, you go back to prison for the amount of time that's remaining.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating when you do the math in terms of like how they calculate that. This is under Wisconsin's truth in sentencing, which has been in effect for as long as I've been a lawyer,
Mhm.
for as long as I've been an adult. I've got to say, there's very, very, very strong arguments that the previous regime was more rational because a judge would sentence someone to 30 years, knowing that probation and parole might let him out in 5.
Yeah.
Uh, and it depends on how they're doing in programming in prison with their meds, etc.
Yeah.
Like the rationale, but politicians made tons and tons and still make hay on, life is life. Like you never lose votes slugging felons. The only people that care about judicial elections or statutes are people whose like nephew caught an OWI,
Yeah.
right? Or people working in the system.
Sure. Yep.
Um, so that said, like that's still, I mean, even if you take his years of exposure and cut them in half, you're looking at all his adult life. You're looking at, 60, 70 years.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Yeah. And I think it's something, and it's something else that we both understand and agree with is, you mentioned as we were taking a break here, you're not going to get a full 9 months for your first misdemeanor battery.
hmm
You're going to get probation. You might even get a first offenders program where you can get that
yeah,
wiped off your record. And I don't have a problem with that.
right.
I'm fine with that.
Yep.
The problem is at what point, you know, after 12 cases, do we say, hey, Mr. Ruiz, you're not getting it? And at some point, we need to lock you up for a long period of time because we need to protect the rest of the public. And in this case, we need to protect the officers. One of the other things I looked at here was how many times was he charged with different offenses? And,
hmm
resisting or obstructing an officer, class A misdemeanor, he was charged 10 times. He caught 10 charges of that.
That
Or,
was the most common charge across his cases.
yeah, disorderly conduct, I saw 12. I saw
Oh, you
12.
did.
Resisting or obstructing, 10.
I don't know if do we actually count DC? I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
I don't know, right? Yeah, exactly. Seriously. Um, and then his more serious ones, bail jumping felony.
That's for what's charged, not what
Yeah,
was referred.
yeah. That's for what's charged. No, that was what was referred. That's what's on CCAP.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, charged by the DA, not referred by the cops.
correct. Charged by the DA. Yep. He has a couple robbery with use of force. I think that was from the one case. So I mean,
Which is astounding. So in the docs I sent you in prep, and I didn't
yeah,
read over all of them. Like he forcibly entered a drug home and like used violence against the people in it,
Oh, okay.
and like this was not exceptional for him.
Yeah,
Like this is the sort of stuff that he was generally up to, and that wasn't with a cop. That was like someone he knew to be a dealer,
sure.
probably someone who like he was friends with and had drugs he wanted.
Drug rip. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we
Drugs or
talk
money.
about the him pepper spraying people at the Woodman's, the grocery store.
Yep.
Like, um, you know, it's he wasn't generally a peaceable fellow.
No, no, he wasn't. And ultimately, and I'm not here to rip on the guy. It doesn't really matter at this point. But I think something we need to look at is, are we being compassionate by giving somebody this many opportunities? And I'll make the point, I have children.
Mhm.
I don't like punishing my children when they misbehave. I feel really bad about it. And I understand that a judge might feel really bad personally about, you're directly sentencing this person to 10 years in prison. That's a huge responsibility. I wouldn't feel good about that either. You're taking away this person's freedom, you're taking away this life. But like listening to the press conference yesterday, people were talking about all of these things that this man could have done in his life. Well, at
And look at
some
what he did do.
yeah, exactly. Like at some point, we're no longer being compassionate. We're no longer being caring and loving by saying, just go back out on the street and do what you want. We have to teach somebody that there are ways in a modern society you have to behave. And I would argue it's not compassionate to just keep letting people go, and the police keep bringing them in and say, hey, this guy's dangerous.
Yeah.
He fought us, he resisted us, and they're like, get him back out there. And we bring him in again. Hey, this guy's dangerous. Get him out. Like at some point, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I can look at this guy's record and I could have told you this is essentially inevitable. He was going to die the way he lived.
So a couple things. I generally agree with you, and I think that the progress that we want can be made in ways other than increased incarceration, although that is a viable option, right?
Sure.
Um, so, brief pit stop. I want to say that black folks actually uh, are sentenced disproportionately harder than white folks are.
Hmm.
And yet, a lot of what comes up in these sort of conversations, given that it was a black dude who was killed at the hands of a white officer,
Sure.
is the counter arguments. Like I posted the stuff from the chief getting Kanye yesterday, and the amount like of racist comments on the clip that I shared,
Yeah.
because the clip that I shared of the dude was ridiculous,
Yeah, absolutely.
but like the racist comments attending it, like ugly pictures of black folk being like, "You must let us kill us, or you're racist." Like,
Yeah,
is the worst form of the argument, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
At the same time, I don't know if it was John McWhorter or Coleman Hughes. They're both McWhorter is a respected linguist, wrote a couple of books.
Sure. Yep. I heard of him.
Coleman Hughes is like he's a professor, even though he's only got his bachelor's or master's.
Mhm.
And they're both black males that are public intellectual voices on race relations,
Yeah.
and I think they'd both be on the same page, although I don't know which to attribute this to, or if they adopted it from someone else. It's the soft racism of low expectations, like essentially that black
Yeah.
folk can't live up to the expectations
Yeah.
of civilized society, which is absolute bullshit.
Absolutely. I
So, like,
hate
I
that.
don't think
Yep.
that Genovese was guilty of that when she sentenced Ruiz to prison,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Arguably, some other judges may have been in sparing him from prison when they ought not to have. Like,
Yeah.
that's not something that the numbers bear out. And so
Okay.
I realize I just ran with a tangent,
Oh, it's all right.
but
It's good to
I,
know. I did. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of feel like I have to because, like, whether we, like, you and I haven't talked about the race of the people a lot, but, like, it's very focal in our community right now.
I
Like, the
mean, sure.
folks out there protesting are all about this was a black dude.
Yeah.
The co-opting of the press conference yesterday was all about you're white, you don't get to talk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I can say like they've got a point in terms of we tend to sentence people of color more harshly, and also, the zeitgeist is such that it's kind of ridiculous to think that like you should be able to storm a public meeting and take a mic because
Yeah.
you happen to have a darker skin tone than I do.
Yeah.
Like that's just weird.
Yeah.
Um, so on the sentencing gig, absolutely right. Like two things deserving of mention. First, we do progressive sentencing. This isn't necessarily formal. It might be mentioned in a couple of cases, but it makes sense. Like, if it's someone's first offense, you don't sentence them to a maximum unless it's egregious circumstances.
Yeah.
You try to do progressive correction. We do have the law, like from case law, that probation is presumed to be the sentence in Wisconsin unless it depreciates the severity of the offense or the safety of the community or the needs of the offender require incarceration.
Yep.
And those are the three factors that courts are required to consider in any sentencing case. So that's the rule. I just said it.
Yep.
Probation is presumed. We presume no prison unless the safety of the community, the character of the offender, or the gravity of the offense requires it. So that's what judges are required to go by, but there's a lot of wiggle room in there.
Sure.
And depending on what you're focusing on, I mean, each case, like that's why we have judges. Each case requires a different sort of focus. Sometimes, if it's a victimless crime, the safety of the community is not much at stake.
Yep.
If it's something like drunk driving, character of the offender in terms of their amenability toward treatment and the safety of the community are both huge.
Yeah.
Like, can this person be fixed? And is he going to run someone over in the meantime? Right. Even though it's super, super common. Like, so yeah, it's important background information. I don't know. I mean, I will say that with Ruiz, he did get sent up for at least a couple of years that he spent in actual prison.
Yeah.
So I don't know that any more punishment would have fixed that guy. Like at that point, it does become like you either like you just separate them to keep the community safe. Like
Yeah.
he's not going to learn anything more from 4 years in than he did from two
No,
years.
yeah. There's some point where, I hate to say it's going to sound cruel, but like someone's beyond rehabilitation.
Hmm.
Like how much more, like there's some people who aren't worth your effort anymore. And I know that sounds cold, but it's like you're right. We have to protect the community at some point. Okay. And the innocent people in the community. I think something else you mentioned too is alternatives to incarceration, which could be court ordered, mental health treatment and things like that. Uh, Pros and cons. My experience with the mental health field, whether it's court ordered or not, certainly on the not side, is that it tends to be very short lived, and I see a lot of repeat, customers, so to speak,
Hmm.
um, who, again, maybe not criminally, but endanger other people in the community and stuff like that. That's a whole nother issue we can get into, the state of our mental health system. But in certain cases, that certainly could be an issue too, because not everybody who commits crimes is a bad or evil or however you want to spin it or call it person. Sometimes they truly don't have control or understanding of what they're doing. So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of how we assign guilt or blame is mens rea, like the conscious culpability, like how much you meant to be an asshole. Uh, like intent matters. I mean, it's the difference between first degree intentional homicide and manslaughter,
yeah,
whether or not you meant to do something. So someone's acts can be the same and be intentional or entirely and completely driven by psychosis, wherein they're NGI, not guilty by reason of insanity. It's not blameworthy at all. We might still lock them up,
yeah,
but so. like I want to know the way that that breaks down in terms of NGI. The in Wisconsin is not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Is the short term for it is not guilty by reason of insanity. It just means that uh, someone had a mental disease or defect such that they either could not appreciate the wrongfulness of their conduct, they didn't know right from wrong, or even if they did, they couldn't control their behavior.
Yeah.
It's fairly simple. And then competency, I think I described it before. It's just like, do you know what you're charged with? Do you know who the players are? You know what the judge is? You know who your attorney is?
Yeah.
Do you know what a jury does? Okay, you can stand trial.
Yeah, you
Right?
you have to have at least enough knowledge to be able to defend yourself,
Yep.
right, in
And those are
court.
two different things. You
Yeah,
can be competent without being NGI. You can be
yeah.
NGI without being competent, and you can be both. Right.
You know what's interesting? I mean, it brings up another thought talking about that too when you're talking about, whether you're able to control yourself. That's interesting because it's like that's something that we talk about when we talk about de-escalation
Hmm.
tactics and things like that. Because everybody wants to talk about de-escalation and why didn't they de-escalate this person? And I think I've beaten the whole not enough time thing with a dead horse, so I don't think I need to go into that again. But there's also some people you cannot de-escalate because de-escalation, in addition to time, also requires somebody who has the mental capacity, the mental processing to at least understand some reason or consequences for their actions. And truly, I when I talk about this with officers, there are some people who they're unable to be de-escalated because they are unable to control their behavior. They're unable to think lucidly or logically, and that's often like paranoid schizophrenics. Like if somebody genuinely believes that you are from the CIA and you are trying to kill them or abduct them or things like that, like I've run into these people,
Yep.
there's nothing you can say that's going to logic them out of that or convince them otherwise. If that's their reality and they think that they're going to get drug off and killed, they're not going to go willingly. You can't de-escalate somebody like that. So
It's hard to understand. The worst I've ever been is super stoned, right? So
yeah,
like I've
right.
never heard voices, I've never seen things that aren't there. But like to imagine, I mean, even if it's not like the hearing of voices and the seeing of things, like to have a belief that's just so you know it in your bones that
Yeah.
Adrian's a CIA agent,
Yeah.
like,
Wild. It's really hard for the average person to
you know.
appreciate that. And that's what's so sad or tragic about mental illness. It's
So
sucks.
to wrap up, like and you may have alluded to it in the recitation of his sentences. Like, what, if anything, do you think could have made this avoidable?
Yeah. I think I think earlier on in the court process, we have to look at someone's record and we have to look at their pattern of behavior and we have to say, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, fool me 12 times, fool me 23 times. I mean, dare I say, if he would have been sentenced for his 25th case when he was on probation, he would be alive today. How many times does it take before we actually say you're a danger to other people, you're a danger to the police officers, you're a danger to yourself. We need to remove you from society for a extended period of time, protect everybody involved in this. Um, Looking at his record, it is the literal definition of insanity. Like we're talking about, is he competent? Is he insane? Well, everybody involved in this process just repeated the same decision 25 times and expected a different result. I don't know anything that's more insane than that.
You know what?
I wish we could have done. We had so many opportunities for intervention. How did we miss this? And how are we always looking at the last few seconds of this 20-year process, but the only thing we look at is the last few seconds where the police officers are involved.
Right. No, I hear you. something that's remarkable about his case, and I understand that just in the time I've been a lawyer, like 15, 20 years. I graduated in 2009. So in Dane County, we've started tracking cases with an individual judge. So like this dude's been all over the place.
Yeah.
He's been in front of Mario White, Julie Genovese, Ellen Burrs. Like with this many cases, it's hard to find a judge he hasn't been in front of,
Hmm.
right? Uh, that said, the way the regime is now is if someone has an existing case, they catch another case, it's in front of the same judge. Only makes sense,
Yeah,
right? Because there's going to be a global disposition. It hasn't always been that way.
sure.
And so, just part of what occurs to me intuitively based on what you're saying is if he'd been dealing with Genovese this whole time and not Burrs and not Mitchell and not Kandar, I mean, like
Yeah,
if it was the same judge who recognized me as like, what the fuck are you doing back here?
yeah.
Like that might have made a
It might
difference.
have. You're right.
And we're already headed in that direction for different reasons,
Good.
like judicial efficiency.
Sure.
But like before I give my two suggestions, anything else you can think of? Like anything in terms of police training,
Yeah,
in terms of police disposition that would make this
we
better?
really, really need to ramp up the hands-on, the defensive tactics training, and I know that's being worked on at the state level. I don't know that that would have made a difference here.
Is that BJJ-ish stuff, or
It's
what do you
getting
mean?
into more of the BJJ like stuff, control
But
tactics, and
that's what you
things
mean,
like
like
that.
hand to hand.
Yeah, and officers need to get more of it. Like, I mean, you know how bad I complain about shooting training for officers, like hands-on defensive track tactics training. They get less of that on a routine basis once they get out of the academy um, than shooting training. And again, I'm not saying it would have made a difference in this specific case. There are plenty of other cases where yes, it would have made a difference, and
Right.
more assertive, better control tactics earlier on would have prevented the situation from escalating. Sometimes the best way to de-escalate a situation is a rapid application of reasonable force. Right at the onset, you gain control of a subject so they can't draw that knife. They can't escalate. They can't get a hold of your gun, things like that. So again, against somebody who does pull a knife at that point, it's honestly too late. But in some cases, could we avoid having to shoot people because we get control of them earlier on? Yes. And I think agencies, if they're really serious about this, they need to put their money where their mouth is. I can tell you in my 10 years that I spent at the City of Madison Police Department, we did like ground fighting training maybe 2 or 3 times. We
In the
did
10 years.
in the 10 years,
So
we did.
once every 3, 4
Yeah, we
years.
did defense and arrest tactics. I don't think it was even annually. It was maybe every other year. And Madison's better than most. Madison, when it comes to actual training, Madison is better than the majority of agencies out there.
Yeah.
So, but they cost money. They cost taxpayers money. If you want better officers, you need to pony up for it because when officers are training, they're not on the street, so you need more officers to cover positions on the street. When officers are training and the training is realistic, some people are going to get injured, so you're going to have
Yeah.
officers out. You're going to pay workers
You've
comp.
you've made this point about athletes in their training cycle. Like we give cops a couple of weeks off and we expect them to be on the rest of the time. And if you look at like
Yeah,
the fatigue of an athlete, like we give them like they only play for a season and we still give them like all these supports. That makes sense.
yeah, and I mean, even if you look at it, like how much does how much does an athlete practice? It depends on the sport, but say the NFL, they're practicing even during the season. They're practicing day after day after day after day, and then they play one game for an hour, right?
Right.
And then they go back and practice.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's the off season too. They practice way more than they play. With police, it's you're playing 98% of the time and you get 2% practice or something like that.
So body cams for
Oh,
against
100%
complicated.
for. And I want to be real clear about this. Back even before the Tony Robinson shooting in 2015, officers at Madison wanted body cameras. The majority of officers wanted them.
And what got in the way in your assessment?
Um, a little bit from some of the union and some of the older figures at the department because, and it's a trust thing, right? Because in the past, sometimes administrators, when they're reviewing video or they're tracking officers, they, sometimes people, I'm gonna say this like it is. Sometimes to get promoted up the chain, you need to show that you can do someone, okay, to get up to higher levels. So some officers got hammered for stuff that you shouldn't have gotten in trouble for. Maybe it's a talking to.
Huh.
I'll give you another example. GPS. When I was at Madison, we had the capability to track our squad cars on GPS, but it was not turned off. Why? Because people were afraid that the administrators were going to be like, "Hey, you're sitting at the department for 3 hours and not out on
You were at
patrol."
the Red Robin your whole
Yeah,
shift.
exactly. Stuff like that, right? Which is it's just mind blowing because it's such a safety issue. Okay. So there's two ways to look at that. Number one is like you're a cop, you should be doing some work. But two, let's be reasonable too. Like it's okay some days when you've had some rough times to go freaking take a break and relax a little bit.
Yeah.
You have to do that. Okay. So the problem is sometimes you get administrators who are dickheads and they'll go after people for that. So there's a lack of trust there. So that was part of the problem. So the initial push, maybe I don't want to say it was roadblock, but it got stalled out a little bit because there was a little lack of trust, I would say, between officers and maybe union and the department.
Yeah.
But it was not enough to stall out the program. It just delayed it a little bit. When body cameras started then rolling out to everybody else, what did we see industry wide? We saw that conviction rates went up and we saw officers' complaints were being exonerated.
Yeah, we are now an outlier.
Absolutely. It is rare for an agency the size of Madison. I would say, from what I heard, Madison is like one of the only agencies in the country for similar sized agencies to not have body cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So, officer, again, conviction rates went up because everything was on video. Officers were being cleared of their bogus complaints that people were filing. And then what happened is we saw a shift. All of the activists and people in the community who were screaming for body cameras before, all of a sudden their narrative changed and they were like, nope, it's an invasion of privacy. We don't want our officers to have body cameras. Madison,
So interesting.
the department tried to push body cameras in their budget multiple times. It was blocked and voted down by Madison City Council members.
That's important for folks to know.
They
I
should
mean,
know that.
I feel like the chief was back in his heels
Yeah.
yesterday. Like, why don't you have it? And the narrative they got across wasn't we've been trying for 20 years.
Yeah.
When in fact, I think that's the case. Like initially, like you said, some resistance circa
Yeah.
2010 or whatever.
It's been at least 8 years that I would say, and maybe 10, that the department has actively been trying to get body cameras. I will say this too. The last time it was in the budget, city council voted it down and they put the money to hire the independent monitor. So you hire an independent monitor who doesn't even have body camera video to
Yeah.
review.
I feel like independent monitor is probably another podcast, maybe next week.
Oh my lord, don't get me started about that.
I don't have an intelligent opinion.
Yeah.
I've got a knee jerk reaction. Yeah, no, I mean, so like that is a huge problem I've got with people that I genuinely have affection for, people that I love
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Facebook, that on social media. They're insisting that this was an execution that they saw in video, that it was a murder. They saw that the cop should be arrested. And my concern is that they're not going to accept anything that doesn't confirm the disposition they have. They don't actually want an independent investigation. They want a stamp on the conclusion that they've already arrived at. Now, look, I will guillotine a cop first of all. I mean, you give me Jonathan Ross, like
Sure.
I will say that fucker's guilty of murder.
Hmm.
This ain't that. And it really concerns me. I mean, John Adams is not my favorite president, but he's the dude who defended the redcoats from the Boston Massacre.
Sure.
Like, I'm gonna defend any ICE agents, but
Yeah.
I would defend this dude every day of the week and twice on Sunday, and I am reason like I'm not that great a trial lawyer. I would get an acquittal.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
oh, yeah. I'm not a lawyer. I could get an acquittal on this.
just in terms of systemic change. The first one I have is I don't know if it'd be in terms of diverting funds or just trying to like because I'm a liberal, so we'll just tax Elon more.
Sure.
Um, like just giving more funds to community intervention teams, like to respond to calls and not these community intervention like the mental health professionals.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like to get people I point one, I shouldn't have to dial 911 to get the community intervention team. I should be able to dial 988. I
Agreed.
had a dude out front here. I live above the Penny Street Library. Uh, he was a trans person in crisis about something I know not what. Gave him some water because he was thirsty. Called 911 because it was the only way to get through
Yeah.
to the community intervention. I don't even know what they're called. Is that it?
We have it's CARES team here in
Cares.
Dane County, and I shouldn't even say Dane County. It's City of Madison. Yeah,
So I Googled it. I called 911 because that was the only way to get through. I said, do not send the cops. We don't need the cops.
yep,
This person is just in distress and they need
yeah,
help.
yep,
And they're like, we'll do what we can. They sent the fucking cops because the CARES team was busy.
yeah,
And I get it. Like, I'm not faulting anyone for that, but the cops showed up, gave the dude a hard time, and said he had to be off the property. Like,
yeah,
fuck it. It's a public library. Like, that wasn't the point of my call,
yeah,
right?
yep, yeah,
And I'm not assigning blame here. I'm saying like we need to be able to reach social workers through somebody other than police dispatch.
yeah.
But what do you think of? I mean, I guess to make it smart, like what of? I mean, do you think that it's important to invest money in community intervention, even if it's at the price of top investment?
Uh, Yeah, I mean,
I don't mean to make it an either or,
no, it's
but
not. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the deal with politics, right? It's we have limited resources. How do we assign
and that's the only
resources?
reason I ask it that way. Like,
Yeah,
of course, you'll agree if there's no stakes, but will
yeah,
you agree if it
yeah,
costs something?
yeah. I mean, I will say this. I can answer the question this way. I will say, from what I have seen, the CARES program in Madison has been very successful. And by that, I mean that it has taken away a workload from police. It is amazing how many of those calls that they now can handle that don't tie up law enforcement resources.
Mhm.
So theoretically, could some resources, some funding be diverted from law enforcement towards some of these programs? Yes, but it needs to be researched and evidence based. One of the problems that I have, and again, I'm a conservative saying that, okay, more conservative than liberal. One of the problems that I have with the more liberal approach is that sometimes it seems like, let's just throw some money at it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, it's probably because we didn't throw enough money at it, right? We should
Right.
just throw more money at it. So, like, we have to figure out, okay, like, if we're going to pull money from law enforcement, how much are we going to divert? And then are we seeing the results in it? And so something like CARES, like that crisis intervention, that's city run, things like that. Yes, where I think that we could pull more money from is from some of these NGOs, like I said earlier, that I don't see producing measurable results. I think if you're an NGO and you are getting millions of dollars, some of these agencies are getting millions of dollars a year from the city and from the county. You need to show us what you are doing with
Yeah.
that money and what results you're
So
producing.
you mentioned that, like, and maybe like we don't need to commit to it, but maybe you can give me some details offline, and
Yeah,
I can put it in the like the pod notes,
sure.
just like what we're talking about. Because
Yeah.
like when I think NGO, I think United Nations and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
I'm talking about these some of these local, yeah, just some of these more local organizations that are, I mean, they're community groups, right? And in theory, on the surface, it sounds like, hey, they're doing good. They're supposed to do good things. They're doing outreach. They're trying to, work with people. But when the director of a local NGO who has no experience other than being an activist when they were in college makes $300,000 a year, I have a question. I have some questions about what that person has done to deserve that salary. And what good are they actually doing the community? Maybe they're doing good. Maybe they're doing great, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything coming forward. I haven't seen reports on how this money is being used. I haven't seen what the actual measurable good is because it seems like we just keep spinning our wheels over and over and over again.
Your
So,
analysis on the CARES team, even if it sucks money from the police, is interesting. Like what it makes me think of is, paying down your 24% credit card debt when instead of putting it in your 6% interest bearing savings account.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like maybe I can take money away from your savings account, but it's going to be more effective for you overall,
yeah,
right?
yep.
Than saving the money would have been.
Well, and I'll say this, even well before the CARES team was around, I think it was under Mike Koval, Chief Mike Koval, was Madison started the mental health officer program. And each
Oh,
district was assigned a single police officer who their like only job was to deal with mental health calls. So they were still a
sweet.
police officer.
Do you still have that? Not you.
No,
It's
no.
not your department.
Yeah,
They
I
still have that?
believe they do. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that, but I believe they do. But even that, on such a small scale level, we were also relieved because instead of us having to go, a patrol officer who's honestly just trying to keep the city from burning down most nights, right? We're just trying to keep, the finger in the dam, right? Now we have to go with somebody who's suicidal, but they're not really a danger. They're not a dangerous, person to anyone else. And we have to go sit with them at the hospital
Sort
for,
of an attention suck.
yeah, we have to go sit with them at the hospital for 8 hours
Mhm.
until they go through a medical clearance. And then we get a bed where we can transport them to Winnebago or somewhere else. It's like to have one officer who actually could handle that. And then they were a central like clearinghouse where they kind of kept track of everybody and they knew these people because they had multiple contacts with them. It was such a relief and it freed up, so many resources. So I think in that case, it's a great investment. That said, I do want to say though, there are things that those they can't tackle. They can't tackle it because if the person is armed and violent and dangerous and stuff like that, you can't send an unarmed social
The
worker.
CARES team.
Yeah, you can't
So
send
let
them to go
me
deal with that.
and maybe I'll have to put my ideas about NGI and competency off for
Mhm.
my own thing. But uh, when Sarah and I were talking about this, I think we foist too much on cops. I mean, we expect it to be SEAL Team 6 and Gandhi,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And that's just not so. When I'm talking about diverting money from you or whatever, again, I would hope it's a smart investment that we're sending it from a 22 interest,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yep.
Um, any thoughts on that? I love the mental health officer gig, but I mean, I'm sure you agree that you guys are expected to have too wide a range.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to see offloaded or anything that you
Oh
think would
man.
help the public was offloaded? Is
Yeah.
what you just described was perfect. There's
Yeah.
no reason y'all should be spending 8 hours when a nurse is already sitting with someone,
Yeah.
right?
We law enforcement by default becomes the people who will do the job when nobody else will do it. So yeah, it's like we wind up sitting at the hospital because the hospital security guard can't sit there, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or, how many civil matters we deal with, child complaints. It's total civil thing.
Interesting.
It's we have, a custody agreement and it's like, my baby mama didn't drop off my kid in time and this and that. And we go there and we spend an hour talking to these people and we have zero legal authority to do anything about it. We say we'll document it, get
That's
get
fascinating.
the report and take them back to court and talk to the judge.
That
We
opens up
can't
a
hold
whole
somebody in
new
contempt.
right. I mean, we could hypothetically, I don't want to get too far afield, but we could have civil cops,
Yeah.
like people that are doing even the evictions. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are handled by deputies, but you're right. I mean, that could be a
It's a civil
non-sworn,
matter,
it's a civil matter. And if
the
there's no risk
serving
of
of subpoena.
violence,
Yeah, it's
so
interesting.
all sorts of stuff like that. And I will say this, a lot of it is our own damn fault because law enforcement leaders over the course of the past several decades trying to do more And community policing is good, but they try to do too much of it and they try to do everything for the community and they don't know how to say no.
Mm.
Um, One thing that's finally changing, it sounds stupid, but it's like when you get into a fender bender at Walmart backing out of a parking stall and you expect the police to come and spend an hour there writing a police report
Yeah,
for your insurance companies, you can take pictures, you can exchange information, and you can send that to your insurance company and let them figure that out. We have no jurisdiction to
that's
write
great.
tickets there. What a huge waste of time. Why are we doing that?
No, because I mean,
You
they
know?
think you're a neutral arbiter, but basically, what I'm hearing is cell phones and low
Yeah.
stakes are taking the place of having to suck up
Yep.
your time with that.
I mean, I'm a neutral arbiter, but what am I doing? I'm getting your statement and I'm getting your statement and I'm putting them on a piece of paper.
And half the time, I fucking disagree with you when I read your report.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I'm not doing any investigation there. You know, it's like as a community service, I understand there's some things as a community service. For instance, I had one a few weeks ago. I had a couple of them. Fender bender, literally that scenario in a parking lot. And somebody called and they're like, "Hey, I'm trying to get the video from Walmart because my insurance company or their insurance company won't pay and they're arguing and blah, blah, blah. I contacted Walmart, but they said they need police to get involved. Right. I'm like, how stupid. Like, why can't the insurance company just contact Walmart and then
Yeah,
Walmart give them the video? So
right.
what do I have to do? To sit down, I have to draw out an email to the loss prevention officer and say, hey, can you send me the video?
This
This
is
is
where
the
Clyde
time.
will help you.
And I spend, it's not a big deal, but I spent
It's a pain in the
45
ass.
minutes doing it. If you combine all of the time, the emails back and forth, and then I get the disc, and then I got to pick up the disc and I got to put it in an envelope and I got to mail it to the person for it has no law enforcement relevance at all. It is purely a community service thing.
Dude, I super appreciate you bringing that up. Like,
Yeah.
that's not something that would have occurred to me before.
We
Like,
do.
absent a conversation about
Yeah.
this, you know,
Catching stray animals, taking them to the Humane Society,
I
like,
mean, I
oh
would
my
like
God.
my very first case as a proprosecutor was dogs at large. I just want to say
No kidding.
it was against a pro se litigant in his municipal. I
Oh
won.
man, nice, nice.
um,
Yeah,
so I know you had a little bit of concern with my two ideas, which is just, well, I'll say them real briefly because you got to go. We've gone
yeah,
way over time, and I appreciate it. Um, when it comes to NGI and competency, the grounds for which we've already explained, my notion is that if we loosen these up a little bit in the court process, uh, if judges telegraph that they're more inclined to find someone not competent or not guilty by reason of insanity, that the people who do the evaluations might opine more loosely that they
sure.
are. And what the result would be, here's my theory, is that people like Ruiz particularly, because he had a number of competency and NGI issues in his 20 some cases. They might be routed through the criminal justice system into mental health and commitment. Both NGI and competency can require. So when we talked about this offline, your objection was like, if it does something,
Yeah,
like if not recompense, but like if it has some result, like if it's not just, oh, they get to go free, and like they fucking don't,
yeah,
right? Like whether it's NGI or competency, the result is you're involuntarily treated, probably through medication, until you become competent,
yeah,
or in the case of NGI, until you're not a danger. So if you get a schizophrenic or a bipolar dude who's like a danger to others, like that person is going to have medication forced upon them until they're not. And then
yeah.
they will be released into the community and supervised.
The issue that I have, so I would say in theory, yes, I could care less if they spend time in prison or if they go to the mental hospital. Whatever is honestly going to be best for them so they don't do this again and that's going to protect the public, I'm all in favor for. Okay. I don't care. The problem that I see and that I've seen more and more recently is that people go away for mental health treatment and they get a bunch of drugs. And we know that a lot of times those drugs take 6 weeks or months to kick in, but they're put back out into the community because it's least restrictive
Mm.
when they are not stabilized and then bad things happen, and then we're back restarting the process over and over again. So in theory, I would have no problems with that, but we have to have the follow through on the back end. And the simple truth is we don't have a lot of big mental institutions, mental hospitals anymore where we can keep people confined and out of the community. More and more and more these days, people are going back to group homes and things like that in the community. And then something happens, they decompensate, and now they are a threat to everybody else in the community and themselves. And we're just wasting time and resources.
I saw, uh, not on our interaction, but on one of my posts, my son, Facebook friend arguing with a lawyer Facebook friend who has since become a social worker, who had pointed out that Trump had restricted some funds for like local mental health stuff.
Okay.
I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
Like,
I
so
don't know.
caveat, I don't know that that's true, but I think like she seems concerned about this. I might end up having her on if
Oh, yeah.
possible,
Cool.
just because like I hear what you're saying. Like one of the things about mental illness like that, like I've got some people now who I'm not concerned about their competency. They aren't committed.
Yeah.
They're certainly mentally ill, and their compliance with treatment is a huge fucking problem,
Yeah.
right? So, like, one dude in particular, once he's right, he starts to think about, these meds are going to stop me from,
Yeah.
having relations.
Yep.
And, like, so he goes off his meds
Yep.
and then he gets nutty again. Like, this is very predictable. Like, this happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
So I don't have blinders on to your concern. Like I think that's one of like that's within like what you're talking about and I hear it. I mean, I agree with our community that it's regrettable Corey died. I agree with you
Yeah.
on view of his record that absent something changing with him or with the way we do things, like it was always gonna end that way.
Yeah. And unfortunately, um, there's other people out in the community right now where I can say it's going to happen to them too,
Yeah.
and it's like,
On point being we want to prevent it.
yeah,
Right.
it's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time.
Yeah.
So we need to look at, are there some things we can do? And ultimately, while I know a lot of people want to just point fingers at the police, pointing fingers at the police is not, it's not going to solve the problem. You might get some improvement pointing fingers at the police, and that's fine. And I'm open to that. But until we really look at the root of the problem and really dig into it and see all of the aspects of it, you know, it's like trying to treat, cancer in your foot, but ignoring the cancer in your lungs. If you want to cure the cancer, you gotta look at the whole picture. And
Yeah.
so maybe maybe someone else's life can be saved if we do that. But it also is going to take a lot of people being able to self-reflect and like I said before, like have a little distance between their emotions and what they perceive as reality, and recognize that just because you feel a certain way, that doesn't mean that's the way the world is. And understanding that there's different perspectives, and that even sometimes you could be wrong about things, and there are different approaches to tackling some of these problems.
Absolutely, I hear you, and like that applies to you and I as well.
Yeah,
And that's, I mean, maybe the most valuable part of this will end up being like your ideations on, things systemically we could do different, and it's not an either or, right? I mean, I think it's important to address that, in our opinion, like DOJ will say, but in our opinion, like all we see is justification with this shooting.
yeah,
Uh, and yet that's not the end of the story. So it was really interesting to hear your insights in terms of what you think could make a difference. And
yeah. Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on. And
Yeah,
like,
you bet.
dude, maybe be a more frequent co-host
Yeah.
because like my tens of viewers.
I was thinking, I was like, I think from a podcast perspective, it could be kind of interesting having a defense attorney and a cop,
100%.
talking about this stuff. But I think like we might have to duke it out a little bit. We might have to like yell at each other and call each other names and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. Like I think we need a little drama if we're really going to get more than a dozen subscribers. But
I have got a gi in the other room,
no kidding.
and I will judo you out that window.
Oh man,
Thank you so much for coming on.
you bet, brother.